0.06 up on Piastri, though, in the first sector. He has a Red Bull ahead of him right now. Little bit of understeer coming through turn 8. Really close to the barriers, though, as that Red Bull has just run away from him now. Braking hard through turn 10 and 11. 212. Now approaching to back. And coming as the final sector, 0.02 down on Piastri through the swimming pool chicane. Passes his teammate. Now through Rasgas with that different line that he's been taking so close to the barrier. Now through the final 2 sectors, yellow flag shown. Magnussen goes fastest with a 111.8. Now Charles Leclerc crosses the line with a 111.653 to take that top spot. 4 minutes and 20 seconds left to go, as Charles Leclerc's girlfriend smiles as he is in that top spot. Hülkenberg goes up to P3. Chennai asking what is the issue with Perez. He's been struggling all weekend, unfortunately. Both Red Bulls not as happy as we would expect them to be. Ricciardo improves on his lap time for P11. Albon now pushing out on circuit. He's currently the driver at risk. Now is when the drivers really start to push if they are under pressure. And that can always cause some issues out on circuit, as we're seeing a little bit of the branding lying all over the circuit in a few places. Russell improves on his lap time for a 111.492. Leclerc goes second, behind him 0.1 down. Stroll in third, then it's Magnussen and Hülkenberg and Piastri then in sixth. Hamilton and Sainz are on out laps. Verstappen is still out on circuit, but he is down in ninth place. CC saying whoever goes out near the end of the session seems to get the good lap time. Yes, of course, because the circuit evolves as the drivers put lap times in. They put even more rubber down on circuit as Verstappen gets ahead of Stroll, but only up for third place. Sargent improves his lap time for P11 now. New driver at risk is Ocon as Albon moves himself up into P5. Tsunoda setting a purple middle sector. Tsunoda coming through the final 2 corners now, really close to the barriers. Crossing the line, he goes up to P7. Brilliant from Yuki Tsunoda. Daniel Ricciardo is the final driver at risk. He's now dropped into that dropout zone. Will he be able to take another lap around? 2 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. Norris currently in the pits with 2 minutes remaining of the session. He is in the bottom 5, as is Sergio Perez, Bottas and Zhou, as well as Daniel Ricciardo, and Gasly is the current driver at risk. TC saying Williams P5 exclamation mark. Certainly brilliant from him as Perez only moves himself into 14th. Perez still in massive amounts of danger. Hamilton moves himself up into P2. Lando Norris on an outlap. Will he be able to get this done in time? Sergio Perez, certainly not enough for him. He will be needing to put in another lap time. Alonso down in 13, also still really at risk, as is Sainz. A lot of drivers needing to improve on their lap times. Still driving cleanly, though I expected a red flag or at least a little bit of an incident into the wall, but clean driving from the drivers so far. The projected knockout time being a 111.9. Current drivers at risk, Sargent, Gasly, Ricciardo, Norris, Bottas and Zhou down in those top or the bottom 5 positions that will be dropped out at the end of the session. Alonso now coming through the final sector. He needs to improve with 50 seconds left on the clock. Where does he put himself? No improvement as he backs off. That is it. 13th place is where he is. Very, very, very vulnerable, as now Lando Norris is waiting in the queue. He's the last one in the queue before turn 19 and 20, as Alexandros says, what the hell is Perez doing? He's really at risk at the moment, down in P14. Lando Norris starts his lap time in time with 20 seconds on the board. Gasly ahead of him is on a hot lap. He certainly needs to hope that Gasly keeps it neat and tidy and does not affect his lap. Otherwise, he could be out of this first session. He is 0.1 up on Sargent, the driver he needs to beat to get out of this Q1 session. Perez was able to get another lap time in. Sargent improves to 14th, putting Perez in 15th, really close to that dropout zone. Lando Norris, personal best in the first sector. What can he do in the middle sector, coming through turn 10 and 11? Really close to the barriers there. Lindiwe saying Perez is in serious trouble. Norris coming through to back. 0.3 up on Sargent's time. Ricciardo improves up to P8. Piastri 0.1 up on Russell in the middle sector. Perez improving on his first sector now. Lando Norris coming through 19 and 20. He needs to improve on his lap time to get out of that bottom 5. Norris improves for P9. What can Piastri do? He goes second by 0.008 from Russell. So close between them. Perez really fighting with the car through the final 2 corners. He comes across the line. Can he improve enough? No, Perez is out in Q1. Our dropout drivers are Alonso, Sargent, Perez, Bottas, and Zhou Guanyu, all out in the first session of qualifying. And the big name out there is Sergio Perez and Fernando Alonso. Certainly not expecting those 2 drivers to drop out in Monaco qualifying. Both really good street race qualifiers out in the first session here today. Clearly a very, very interesting session. Very, very weird that both of them are struggling so badly on these soft tires around the circuit while their teammates seem to be having a completely polar opposite experience in the car. As Perez gets told P18 and he says, what a beeping joke. As Chennai is saying Sargent is better than Perez, what in the world? What a qualifying session that first session was. Waiting for session 2 now. As Alexandra says, Perez is officially out of the team. Certainly not what he needs to be doing when he is in contract negotiations with Red Bull right now. Reportedly being offered a 1-year contract extension, but wanting a 2-year. Leonardo Longhi is saying Bottas and Zhou are way slower than the others. As G. Peter says Perez out, Merckx in front. Monaco has plenty of surprises left. It certainly does. That is for sure. Simeon says, please, Mercedes, don't touch the car. And Raul Pojito also just reacting to Sergio Perez being dropped out of the first session of qualifying. Certainly a big talking point is him and Alonso getting dropped out. Certainly looks a little bit shell-shocked as he takes off his steering wheel, as his teammate still has at least another 2 sessions ahead of him. Old Man reacting there to both Aussies getting through, saying that it is currently nail-biting. It certainly has been a nail-biting first session. Just watching Max Verstappen having maybe a bit of a moment into the first corner. Just getting so close there to the point that he's going up onto the sidewalk, the pedestrian lane, just using every single millimeter. He's 2 centimeters away from the wall. That's like nothing. There's still margin though, is what I'm hearing for Verstappen. Mango J saying, I am back. Thank you very much for joining us in the stream. Missed Q1, but what a Q1 you missed there. Sergio Perez out, Fernando Alonso out, Alex Albon up in P6 ahead of Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda managing to get out of that first session. But what an interesting one that this is going to end up being for Q2 and Q3. Yared saying Shah will take pole. And TC says, fancy buying a holiday flat in Monaco, Reese. I certainly would love to. I just don't know if I'd be able to afford that, as I think they go for a couple million euros. So, waiting for the second session to get underway, Lindy, we're saying, do you think that Perez's car performances? Uh, do you think that Perez's car performance is a true indicator of Red Bull's car overall, as both drivers are struggling, but Verstappen is managing because he is Verstappen and an exceptional driver? So, just waiting now as not Perez, Lando Norris is getting sent out of the pits to wait at the end of the pit lane. Certainly was not expecting George Russell to be up at the top of the timing boards going into Q2. We have the Haas of Kevin Magnussen waiting at the end of the pit lane right now, waiting for that green flag. Mango J asking, when does Q2 start? I think it starts in the next minute or so, based on the fact that we have cars waiting at the end of the pit lane. Oscar Piastri getting ready to be released from his garage. As Mindy just giving their support for Max here, and Leonardo saying, fun Q1 fact, both Red Bulls have a Williams car right ahead. That is certainly true. Max Verstappen waiting at the end of the pit lane as well, as is Charles Leclerc. So waiting for that green flag to be shown out on circuit. Being asked, did someone sabotage Perez's car? I thought he was much better before going to Red Bull. Well, he's been doing well in Red Bull, but I think that the direction of the car has gone a lot more towards Max Verstappen, and they seem to be struggling with their new upgrades on their car, just not able to match the likes of the Ferraris, the Mercedes, and those McLarens. But can Max Verstappen pull out something special here today to beat Ayrton Senna's all-time record of qualifying pole positions taken in a row, currently sitting tie with Verstappen on 8. As Ricciardo is the first driver to leave out of the end of the pit lane. 14 minutes are remaining of the session as Fernando Alonso, having a tough day, is out of the car and going towards wherever he will be staying tonight, maybe just to do some debriefs and look over some of the data. Hopefully he can have a better race tomorrow, uh, possibly being able to do something in the strategy, but really disappointing that he was not able to maximize on qualifying in Monaco, where you can really make or break your race. Unfortunately for himself, it has been broken. Lando Norris following on with him at the moment on his warm-up lap, just coming through to back and approaching the swimming pool section. Mango J just saying, hoping Leclerc gets P1 uh, or Lando into P2. As we see Lando Norris approaching the final two corners, setting himself up to start his hot lap. Swings it through turn 19, left into turn 20, and now he starts attacking the 3 kilometer circuit. It's going to be a bit of a quieter session now because, of course, you've lost 5 cars, a little bit less traffic on circuit. The drivers will be much happier with that. They'll be even happier during Q3 when there's another 5 drivers dropped out, as Lando Norris goes purple in the first sector. Those big qualifiers, though, dropped out of the session. Certainly we're not expecting that to happen here, as Max Verstappen steals the first master sector away from Lando Norris. Yeah, it's saying if Charles takes pole, he will win because overtaking on this track is like Logan winning a race. and unless Ferrari screw up. Verstappen still purple in the first sector. Lando Norris goes purple in the middle sector. Can Verstappen also match him or better him? Waiting for Verstappen to come through there. He does a personal best with a 52.2. Not better, but waiting to see what the overall lap times will be. Lando Norris crossed the line with a 111.372. Charles Leclerc goes fastest in the middle sector. So it's all between these three drivers right now. Verstappen crosses the line with a 111.1, fastest time of the day. Charles Leclerc approaching the line now. What can he do at his home Grand Prix in Q2? Crosses the line and he goes second, 111.356, as Ocon comes onto the radio saying, I've been blocked. Tsunoda jumps up to second place. Lap times jumping all over now. Oh, just seeing the Haas of Magnussen having contact with the wall after turn one. As Sainz takes his top spot now away from Verstappen on circuit. Tsunoda down in P3, Leclerc P4, Norris 5th, Piastri 6th, Hulkenberg 7th, Ricciardo 8th, Gasly 9th, Ocon 10th, Albon 11th, and then the rest without times as of yet. Tang saying, if Lewis takes a victory, I'll be very proud because he is driving a tractor. The Mercedes seems to find a bit more pace though this weekend, so certainly not looking like a tractor out here in Monaco. A very expensive and shiny tractor, if it is one. Watching Hamilton's lap time, what can he do through the first sector? 18.659, not a purple sector through there, but hopefully staying along with those top three. 10 minutes left of the second section. Hamilton coming through the tunnel now into the light again and approaching turn 11 and 12. Verstappen going faster once again in the first sector, purple again. Hamilton really close to the wall, through to back. Now into the swimming pool sector, out through 16 and 17. Now through Rasgas. And completing his lap through turn 19 and 20, really bouncing all over the bumps of the circuit. Verstappen, personal best in the middle sector again. Doesn't go purple though. The car is the strongest in the first and the third sector. Now coming through the final corner, DRS open, crossing the line, and he goes fastest with a 111.019.1 ahead of Carlos Sainz, getting also close to the 110s. Leclerc still not looking to improve too much, improves only with a 111.2, not improving his position, as we see John Legend watching on from the pit lane. Two Mercedes supposedly being on an old set of tyre, as Esteban Ocon just watching him getting blocked from one of the Haas's. Ocon's put himself up into P4 though. Brilliant lap from himself, and Tsunoda still sticking it up in P3, holding himself firm. 0.2 seconds behind Verstappen's lap time. Alex Albon, who has not been happy with the grip on the front the entire weekend. They've been eating away at their tires and just not having the grip that they need. He's only 11th with a 111.607. Tang, thank you very much for your words there. Ocon was so blocked, says TC in the comments as well. Russell dives into pits to put on some new tires, as is Leclerc. I expect the majority of the grid to jump in now so that they can put on some fresh tires. Gasly coming through the tunnel now into the light, approaching down the hill into turn 10 and 11, tricky braking zone. Superman saying 130 is raining. I assume he's talking about Pierre Gasly's lap time of a 131. Gasly now finishing up his lap. Hopefully he'll be able to go a bit faster. Crosses the line and he goes up to P6 with a 111.3, much more representative for himself. So currently in the drop zone is Daniel Ricciardo in 15th, Hülkenberg 14th, Magnussen 13th, Albon 12th, Stroll in 11th. Hamilton and Russell are currently on outlaps, as is Piastri, with 6 minutes now left on the clock for Q2. Pole position still not necessarily far away. Sainz only 0.1 behind Verstappen. So now the two Mercedes put on a new set of tyres. They were originally on an old set of tyres. Don't forget that for all of the people bashing the Mercedes right now. They have put on a brand new set of tyres and are going round well on circuit. Lindy, we're surprised that the Alpines and the Hasses are in the mix. I'm more surprised about the pace of the V-Carb this weekend. Hamilton now approaching the middle sector marker through to back, turn 12. Now up in the middle sector, 0.069 down on Verstappen, but purple middle sector. Could he steal this in the end? Through Rasgas, approaching turn 19 and 20, jumping and bouncing all over that exit curb. With 5 minutes left to go of the session, Lewis Hamilton moves himself up into P3 with a 111.110. All the ones for Lewis Hamilton. Piastri flying out on circuit right now. Leclerc starts a hot lap now for himself, as Piastri goes fastest with a 110.756, the first 110s of the weekend. Russell also joins him in the 110s with a 110.929. Verstappen goes on an outlap with 4 minutes left of the session. Everyone going to put in their final laps of Q2. These are the tyres that they'll be using during the race, during their first stint. McLaren and Piastri saying, I've hit the wall. Hopefully causing no damage there. Leclerc coming through to back. Will he be able to respond to Piastri's time? He's 0.1 down. 15 and 16 now. He comes through 17. Close to the wall is Leclerc. Now through Rasgas. And the final 2 corners on the circuit. Down the long run to Sanderbot, turn 1. He crosses the line and goes up to second place with a 110.825. Jackie X, the 8-time race winner for Ferrari and Formula One, watching on here in Monaco. Lando Norris going out on circuit, personal best in the first sector. How far down is he in the middle sector? To his teammate Oscar Piastri, 0.085, ever so slightly down in that middle part of the lap right now. What can he do in the final sector now? Coming through Rasgas, approaching 19 and 20, the final 2 major corners on the circuit, jumping over the entry curb, keeping it stable on the exit curb. Now crosses the line and he goes fastest by 0.02 seconds, 20 thousandths of a second now. McLaren currently in 1 and 2. Albon pushing everything out of his Williams car. Through the final 2 corners now, approaching the start finish line. Can he get himself out of the elimination zone? Yes, he can. 8th position is where he goes, but there are still 2 minutes left of the session, so he's not clear just yet. Pureblood saying Q3 is going to be a banger as we have 2 minutes left of this Q2 session now. Watching on board with Lance Stroll climbing up the hill towards Chapel and Casino. All the left lock as he goes through turn 3 and 4. Right hand into turn 4. Now down the hill towards the hairpin. Now down 7 and 8 for Stroll. Personal best in this first and second sector. Slight light up of the rear, spinning his tires as he comes out of the exit. As now Stroll comes through the big chicane. Through to back and approaching the swimming pool sector. 0.075 down on the driver he needs to beat to get out of that bottom 5. George Russell getting out of his way as he comes through Rasgas and through the final corner. DRS wide open, approaching the start finish line. Can he get himself out? No, he cannot. Slower lap time in the end, unfortunately. Verstappen improves on his lap time to almost put in an identical time to Lando Norris. 0.013 seconds behind Lando Norris's time right now. Oh, so close between these drivers. Ricciardo pushing to get himself out of that bottom zone. 0.2 down on Ocon's time. Gasly pushing as well. He has improved. Hamilton puts himself up into P6 with the 111.0. Ricciardo next across the line. Where can he improve? Only up to P13. Gasly now, where can he go? He goes up to P5. Much better for that Alpine here today. Yuki Tsunoda, he's hoping to get out of the bottom 5. He is currently the driver at risk with a 111.2 being his last lap. Now coming through 19 and 20, can he get out of that bottom 5? He does at the last second. For P9, dropping Alex Albon out in the second session. Albon not being dropped out, but being the driver at risk, as Ocon, Hulkenberg, Ricciardo, Stroll, and Magnussen are all the drivers that are eliminated from this Q2 session. Daniel Ricciardo comes onto the radio saying, I really struggled to get the tyres there in that first push, so that possibly being one of the reasons why he struggled here today. But can he do something special in the race tomorrow? Drivers starting a little bit further down the grid will be hoping for the weather to intervene maybe a little bit in the race to make things a little bit more exciting. TC saying Albon did well, as Jason Plays saying Ricciardo was doing well as well. Gasly coming onto the radio saying, we're being told we are P5. His reaction saying, let's go. So clearly a lot of excitement for Pierre Gasly to get out of that relegation zone at the last second. Tang saying Mercedes are safely through into Q3 as there's a yellow flag in all sectors at the moment. Just watching Esteban Ocon coming through the first corner. Big lockup. Very lucky to keep it out of the wall though. And that would have been the reason that he didn't get out in the end, unfortunately. Lewis Hamilton watching a moment with him, also locking up as he's being a little bit tentative through turn 10, not wanting to hit the wall through there. Through swimming pool as well, just watching him fighting it through the exit of 17, just sliding the rear as we're watching Ocon or Gasly as well through the swimming pool sector, just glancing with the wall. Pure Blood giving their predictions saying Piastri, Max, and Leclerc for the end of Q3. I'm going to say Verstappen, Piastri, Norris. How many safety cars can we expect tomorrow? To minimum question mark asks G Peterson. Well, I think we're guaranteed at least one throughout the race. As TC says, Max will take pole. Lewis will be around the top 6, I reckon. Unfortunately, not feeling good about him. Jason Plays saying Albon is cooking. Well, we'll have to see what happens in the upcoming few minutes, as I expect us to get underway in the next 2. Mango J saying Leclerc P4 this time. I'm disappointed. They seem to have lost some of the pace from the practice sessions to now. So clearly the other teams were just being a little bit more conservative and pushing towards the race tomorrow in their practice sessions today. So that seems to be why Leclerc was able to top those sessions. And unfortunately, those supporting him this weekend might be a little bit disappointed that he doesn't have the pace that we were hoping for. So, no, just a reminder, no one has won the Monaco Grand Prix from outside the top 3 since 1985. So, who knows what will happen tomorrow? Can we get something different? Tang saying both Mercedes have gone into Q3. I had to correct myself, silly me. They should have been fine either way. They have the pace to get into Q3 this year. They've fallen out every now and then, but around Monaco, I would expect them to have the pace. Looking at the track conditions right now, 43 degrees Celsius track temperature, 63% humidity, and the air temperature being 21 degrees Celsius. As we've got a big banner over the grandstands for Charles Leclerc. In the Charles Leclerc grandstand, I'm being told as well. Mango J just saying, with the pace, I'm seeing Leclerc at least top 5 this weekend. He will certainly be hoping to be up higher than just 5th place. He'll be wanting that top spot for this weekend. But who we're watching with right now, Max Verstappen, will certainly be wanting to steal that away from anyone who thinks they have a chance. Jason Plays just saying their predictions: Lando 1, Lewis 2, Leclerc 3, Piastri 4, Max 5, Sainz 6. Sainz is with a Z at the end, not TZ, S. Russell 7th, Albon 8th, 9th is Gasly, 10th Tsunoda, and that is their top 10 predictions. Thank you very much for that, Jason Plays, as we are awaiting the start of this session. Lucy saying Lando P1 is the dream. As we see Gasly jump out of the pits now, as does Charles Leclerc. Just watching a replay now of Pierre Gasly and his lap time to get out of that previous session. Just watching with Piastri as well, and seeing how close he got to the wall, where he came onto the radio saying he had a bit of a clip with the wall. It must have been quite minimal for Piastri, because I don't even notice it. I think it may have been on the entry through 19 and 20. Mango J just saying that their prediction is for the race tomorrow, the finishes of the race. That will certainly be very interesting if that does happen. As we're watching the drivers all queuing at the end of the pit lane, waiting for the green light to be shown. Waiting for the some of the best drivers on the planet to attack the streets of Monaco once again for Q3. This should be a super tight final session where drivers are separated by split seconds. Charles Leclerc currently building up tyre temperature on his outlap. TC saying it is hammer time, Lewis. So waiting for the drivers to finish their outlaps to see their first final attempts in qualifying here today, as we see Carlos Sainz Sr. Watching on from the Ferrari hospitality unit. Another random human also with their predictions for quali, saying Piastri 1, Verstappen 2, Norris 3, Sainz 4, Leclerc 5, Russell 6, Tsunoda 7, Hamilton 8, Albon 9, and Gasly in 10th place. So let's see what happens as we're waiting for these drivers to start their hot laps. Carlos Sainz will be the first one to put in their hot lap. Everything now running on this qualifying session. You need to get a good banker lap in case someone bins it into the wall. Being a clean first and second session, but you never know what happens in this final session when everyone is extracting the absolute maximum from themselves and the car. Sainz coming through the first session now, sector now, waiting for his time, 19.8. Quickly being taken away from him. He seems to have backed off of his lap immediately as he comes through the middle sector. They are on what looks like older tyres as Hamilton goes faster through the first sector, coming now through turn 8 and 9 towards the, or through the tunnel right now. Through 10 and 11, so close to the barriers on the left. Through to back. Russell personal best in the first sector. Hamilton purple in the second sector. 9 minutes remaining of the session. Hamilton coming to finish up his time. What can he put in? A 110.975 with Albon in second with a 111.8. Leclerc saying something's moved in the pedals, so not comfortable in his car right now. Hopefully they are able to sort that out. Certainly not ideal for the Monegasque driver. Purple in the middle sector. DRS open now, approaching the start-finish line. Where will he put his Ferrari? On provisional pole with a 110.418. Piastri, though, going quick out on circuit, but puts himself only in second with 110.444. Russell's time is deleted. Norris goes third with 110.940. Leclerc, Piastri, Norris is the top three right now. Verstappen backed out of his first time. Sainz finishes his lap only third with a 110.673, 0.2 down on his teammate in the sister Ferrari. Verstappen faster in the first sector, but the second and third are where it counts. Russell now coming through the final sector, through the final two corners, wide into 19. Approaching the start-finish line, can he get into the top 5? Yes, he goes fourth. Verstappen coming through the middle sector now. Through to back. Verstappen 0.05 down on Leclerc in the middle sector. Oh, so close between these two phenomenal qualifiers. Now through Rasgas, needs to make up that tiny bit of time. It is half a tenth between Verstappen and Leclerc for provisional pole. Verstappen now coming towards the line. Where will he put his Red Bull? Only third with a 110.567, 0.01 or 0.149 behind Piastri and Leclerc. Oh, so close for the battle for pole position. Verstappen pushing on. Now everyone back into the pits. 6 minutes left on the clock. Now it will be who reacts first, who jumps out of the pits first, who sets their first lap. You do not want to be the first driver, but you want to be one of the last drivers to put in your lap time so that you can get the advantage of all that extra rubber out on circuit. Verstappen coming through the final sector now. Onto the radio, saying still the same issues around turn 5 and 10. He now dives into the pits. Max will be hoping that they can fix those issues that he's having on those corners, as we're watching Albon out on circuit, trying to improve on his lap time. 0.04 down on Leclerc's time right now. Faster than Verstappen. If he can continue that delta throughout the rest of his lap. Five minutes remaining of this session. 9 drivers in the pits. Alex Albon out on circuit though. No one else daring to jump out just yet, waiting for the opportune moment to get out onto circuit. And we all know that they all jump out at the exact same time and there will be a massive traffic jam. Albon moves himself up into P7. Gives himself a good final banker lap just in case something should happen in these final 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Verstappen getting ready to be released from his box. Brand new soft tires on his Red Bull contender. Mercedes waiting. Previous poles in Monaco. Verstappen last year, Leclerc the previous 2. Can Leclerc take it once again here in his home race? Albon comes onto the radio. Just being told nice as he moved himself up into P7. Leclerc leaves his pit box. This is it. This is what it all counts for here in Monaco. This could be the difference between winning and losing the race, getting pole position. So these drivers leaving for their outlaps. Verstappen's leaving. Sainz, Russell is also leaving, as is Hamilton, Gasly, and Tsunoda. Those still in the pits, Leclerc, Piastri, and Norris, but Leclerc is also on an outlap now. As Albon comes into the pits. The drivers will now put themselves at absolute maximum risk by taking every single late braking zone they can, by just pushing that little bit more through the corners, as now Sainz starts his final push lap. Going through Sandevot, the first corner, climbing the hill towards Casino. Turn 3 now. Verstappen following Sainz on his hot lap. 1.5 down on Leclerc through the first sector. He should back off of this and then start again. As we're watching Hamilton now coming through the middle of the first sector, what can he do? He's 0.066 down on Leclerc in that first sector. 2 minutes remaining of the session now. As George Russell is up in the first sector. Into the light comes Hamilton, down towards turn 10 and 11. Very, very close to the barriers there. Almost looking like he was about to touch it. 18.2 is Russell's first sector time. Will anyone be able to beat that? Hamilton 0.1 behind Leclerc as he comes through sector 2. Hamilton trying to get into the top 5, comes through the 19th and final corner, opens the DRS, approaches the start-finish line. He goes up into P4 with a 110.621. Russell coming through Rasgas now. Leclerc also starts his push lap. DRS open for Russell, approaching the start-finish line. Can he also match his teammate? He goes P3 ahead of Max Verstappen. Leclerc pushing on circuit now. 50 seconds remaining. Verstappen has hit the wall. Could be someone else pushing up for that top spot here today. Verstappen having hit the wall. We don't know if there's any damage on his car. Leclerc improves on his final time with a 110.270. What can Piastri or Lando Norris do here today? Piastri approaching the line now. He goes second with a 110.424. Verstappen's bailed out of his final lap. So Verstappen is stuck down in P4. Now down to P5 as Sainz improves up into third. Where can Norris go? Norris improves to P4. Verstappen falls further down to P6. Verstappen, who's had a brilliant run of poles, loses out this weekend as he is done for the end of this qualifying session. What an end as Leclerc takes pole at his home race with Piastri in second, Carlos Sainz in third, Lando Norris in fourth, George Russell in fifth, Max Verstappen in sixth, Lewis Hamilton in seventh, Yuki Tsunoda eighth, Alex Albon ninth, and Pierre Gasly in 10th. Then continuing on down our order, Ocon in 11th, Hülkenberg 12th, Ricciardo 13th, Stroll 14th, Magnussen 15th, Alonso 16th, 17th is Sargent. The big talking point is Perez in 18th, Bottas in 19th, and Zhou Guanyu down in 20th place. A difficult weekend for the Red Bulls here. They expected it to be difficult. They told everyone that they weren't expecting much, as Piero Ferrari, the vice chairman of Ferrari, is here in Monaco watching on as his driver Charles Leclerc has put himself on pole position for the Monaco Grand Prix tomorrow afternoon. What a session that was. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already. We are on our way towards 6,000 subscribers on this channel. Be sure to join us for tomorrow, where we will be streaming the Moto GP as well as the main event, the Monaco Grand Prix. Thank you very much for joining me here today. I've been Reese on Forever Motorsports. Cheers.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across. So late, you sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase. So catch me if I fall.
Hello everyone and welcome to Forever Sports. As one of the leading channels in the world providing free coverage of all of your favourite sports, we are asking for your support. Everything that we create at Forever Sports is available for free and always will be. To help us continue delivering high quality content, as well as expanding our coverage, we are asking you to consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. As part of the Forever Sports Members Club, you will gain access to select perks, such as exclusive stickers and emojis to use during our watch-alongs and live streams. You will also gain early access to premium content, as well as have your name listed on the channel under channel members. We strive to deliver quality content that is unmatched by other channels, and are always looking to take things up another level. And our members give us the chance to do this.
Praying that this night's gonna last. You got it all on tap. I'm loving your vibe, always have your back. We like all the same tracks. Listen all night in the sheets all black. Said I'm falling fast. Don't remember life before you, that's fact. I feel good, you look great. I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date. You're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight. Don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase. So catch me if I fall.
Hello everyone and welcome to Forever Sports. As one of the leading channels in the world providing free coverage of all of your favourite sports, we are asking for your support. Everything that we create at Forever Sports is available for free and always will be. To help us continue delivering high quality content, as well as expanding our coverage, we are asking you to consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. As part of the Forever Sports Members Club, you will gain access to select perks, such as exclusive stickers and emojis to use during our watch-alongs and live streams. You will also gain early access to premium content, as well as have your name listed on the channel under channel members. We strive to deliver quality content that is unmatched by other channels, and are always looking to take things up another level. And our members give us the chance to do this. It is thanks to our members and other support that we get from our fans that we are able to deliver campaigns such as the France 2023 on the ground coverage. So if you would like to continue supporting the channel and the free coverage that it provides, be sure to check the link in the description to become a channel member now. Hello and welcome, my name is Reese and today I'm going to be speaking to you about one of our channel partners.
To Forever Motorsports for what is arguably the most famous race of all time. It is the one and only Monaco Grand Prix for the 2024 season here. And of course, the big talk from yesterday is that the local boy, the Monegasque-born, Monaco-born rather, Monegasque, Charles Leclerc that is, has topped and qualifying and is on pole for today's race. He's never won at his home race, and he gives himself the best possible chance today after starting on pole. Who will be starting on pole, I'll stumble over the words too much, just ahead of the McLaren of Oscar Piastri from yesterday's qualifying. The big news as well is Max Verstappen, quite slow in qualifying yesterday, only managed to finish off there in 6th position. So if we look at the top 5, it's going to be an interesting one in terms of pit stop strategies and tyre strategies, and these are the sort of things that really have an effect on the Monaco Grand Prix, of course, compared to the rest of the races in the season. We've got Charles Leclerc first, Piastri second, Sainz third, Norris in fourth, and Russell in fifth. George Russell, of course, being the top Mercedes ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who's only in 7th, and Max Verstappen, who's in 6th position, running off the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda in 8th, Alex Albon in 9th, and Pierre Gasly in 10th position. Thank you guys so much for joining me, as I say, on Forever Motorsports. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and hit that like button right now. I've got quite a lot of you watching, and I'm very sure that we'll see our regular names in the comment section, as well as hopefully a few new names as well. So guys, please drop a comment down below. Who do you think is going to win the Monaco Grand Prix for the 2024 season? And of course, we've got that poll running as well, so go and participate in that poll as well. Let us know your thoughts there. And if you guys have a different driver that you think will pull something out of the bag for today, be sure to drop that in the comment section as well. Let me know where you're watching from. But yes, this is Formula 1 Grand Prix de Monaco 2024, the second race in Europe after we had Imola last time out. And yes, we've had quite a few races already this season, starting to get an understanding of which cars are quick. The McLarens, Ferraris, and the Red Bulls still fighting it out, and it's going to be an interesting one. It's become a lot more of an interesting season, especially now, these last couple of races, with McLaren starting to really get a few points behind their name. Track distance, 3.3 kilometers long, 78 laps there will be, and the lap record is 1 minute 12. Top speed, 293 kilometers an hour, with 19 turns and an elevation of 41.96 meters here in the city of Monaco, or Monte Carlo in Monaco. The tyre compounds for today: the C5 to the C4 to the C3, C5 being the softest tyre, C4 being medium, and the C3 being the hard tyre. And yes, there are still inters and wets available, but looking at the weather today, it's very unlikely that we'll see that. We've got several hundred yachts in attendance this weekend, some super yachts also there, all to see this starting grid for Formula 1. Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg in both the Haas's will be starting in 20th and 19th after not putting a time in qualifying. Zhou and Bottas also in 18th and 17th then for Kick Sauber right at the bottom there. Sergio Perez, the big surprise yesterday from qualifying, in 16th position, just behind Logan Sargent, who starts in 15th for Williams. Then it's the two Aston Martins of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll in 14th and 13th. Hopefully they could try and get some points today somehow. Daniel Ricciardo and Esteban Ocon will be doing our bottom, rounding off the bottom 10 in 12th and 11th positions, respectively. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine will start in 10th position alongside the Williams of Alex Albon. In 8th position, we've got Yuki Tsunoda and Lewis Hamilton. And Lewis Hamilton will be ruining the fact that he could have got a little bit further up the grid yesterday in qualifying. Max Verstappen, our driver's champion, in 6th position only, and George Russell in the Mercedes ahead of him. Lando Norris in 4th in his McLaren, who's obviously finally got his first win for the season a couple of weekends ago. Sainz will be starting in 3rd for Ferrari, behind Oscar Piastri in 2nd for McLaren, and Charles Leclerc in 1st for Ferrari, of course, in his home Grand Prix. So, of course, our most famous driver at this circuit is being honoured this weekend by McLaren with their special livery. That is Ayrton Senna, the undefeated champion of Monaco. He's never lost a race, and he never will, unfortunately, after that historic death of his 30 years ago, which was honored last week at Imola as well. So he is the only driver to have won here 6 times and is undefeated, as say, at this track. And I expect to see the likes of Max Verstappen start to challenge those records soon. But all the Ferrari fans are out here in their force to see their local champion, their local driver, one of the very few local drivers from Monaco and Formula One. He's actually going to be starting out at the front there, and he's never managed to perform well at Monaco, always had issues. Will he have an issue today, or will he somehow finally break that curse and get himself a win in his home Grand Prix? So Carlos Sainz will be trying to do something as well today, starting in third. It's a really, really good position for himself. And yeah, tyre strategies and pit strategies are going to be a huge thing here. Oscar Piastri starting in second. It's a big, big race for him. He could potentially go on to somehow win this race as well, and that would be historic for him. And yeah, obviously this is quite a difficult track to overtake. It's one of the more boring tracks of the calendar year in terms of actual overtakes and ability to follow cars around the circuit. It's such a narrow circuit, such a short circuit, that it really proves a problem for a lot of drivers. But hopefully something different will happen today. So going to the comments section here, we've got quite a few of the usuals and the regulars joining us as well. We've got Pure Blood, we've got Noel Projito, Old Man Roo, Lindy Ware, we've got Sarah Goods as well, Go Leclerc's family, and Gareth Peterson here. So great to see some. I don't think I've seen your name before. Maybe I have. It must have been a while ago. Marcel Burgers is also in the comments. So yeah, guys, I'm so keen as we now have the formation lap underway here in Monaco, and looking at those McLaren cars. I mean, for all that they were so determined to hold on to their papaya color when they went to Silverstone and put on the chrome livery, which they could have done so much more for. They completely ditched it this weekend, of course, for the traditional Ayrton Senna colors of McLaren back in his day, with the yellow, green, and black. And the car does look very, very cool. I will say that much. It's an awesome, awesome combination of colors, as we see them go around right near the top there, obviously in the top 4 amongst the Ferraris. So 2 really, really famous Formula One teams in McLaren and Ferrari leading us out in this formation lap, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Then we have Mercedes in 5th, of course, with George Russell, and then Max Verstappen's Red Bull in 6th. Do we think Max Verstappen can somehow make this track a little bit more exciting, starting a little bit behind? Of course, everyone knows the Red Bull's got so much more speed generally than most of the cars. So him starting in 6th, will he be able to somehow make overtakes happen around this track? Will he be able to go out of the tunnel section and make overtakes on those ahead of him? If he does, it's going to maybe improve our usual quality of watching the Monaco Grand Prix, and maybe he can make some overtakes, and perhaps we can see some serious defense by some teams ahead of him. Otherwise, it might be a bit of a boring race in store for us. But still, any race that Max Verstappen doesn't win at the moment, a lot of people seem to think is quite an exciting one. So there's quite a high potential that he does not win this race. Ferrari and McLaren, basically, those are the 2 in the running, unless something, again, drastic should happen, such as red flags, crashes, and all these other fancy things that are very much likely in Monaco. We almost always have a yellow flag and a safety car here because of how tight the circuit is. And everyone, you can make one small mistake in Monaco, you're in the wall. It's as simple as that. So all the people in the comments here, let's just go quickly through these comments as they're coming around the final couple of turns to get onto the grid. We've got Leonardo Longi joining us as well. Nick Knack also joining us here. Samindi also in the comments, as well as the usual Bob, who's become a bit more of a regular now this season. And Lobio aus Gurkistan is also here. People saying they're on a hike right now, but you never miss the Monaco Grand Prix. Yes, sad to see Alonso in P14, says Bob. It is indeed quite sad. I was really hoping he'd be further up the grid, but unfortunately he is not. So he's not going to be anywhere near the top there as this formation lap is ending. So I will come back to all of your comments now, but it's going to be a hell of a frantic start, I think, here, because whoever gets themselves into turn 1 ahead, or Charles Leclerc's got the benefit there of having the inside line to Oscar Piastri on his outside, will pretty much determine the rest of this race. Looking at Christian Horner as well, he's looking a little bit concerned in his box there. And there's a little bit of laughs in Mercedes' box as well before they get going, starting 5th and 7th. I think they're hoping they can somehow make some overtakes. And, of course, we've got Hamilton and Verstappen fighting it out into turn 1, which should be interesting, given the fact that, of course, they've had such a big history with each other. So right at the back is the Haas's as they now line up. We are now going to have the start of the Monaco Grand Prix, the most famous Grand Prix in the history of the sport. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. And all the lights gone. The Ferrari's off to a brilliant start there. Oscar Piastri's having to try and defend from Sainz, but Sainz on his inside. As Hamilton's also trying to get up on the inside of Max Verstappen. I think Max Verstappen's lost the position. No, he's just managed to hold on to it for now. Oscar Piastri as well managed to hold on to second. And we still got 1, 2, 3, 4. Ferrari, McLaren as we go past into the final little sections. There's a little bit of contact damage, perhaps for Carlos Sainz. He's really going slowly compared to them. Yes, Carlos Sainz is locked up. He's going to be out of this race. I think Carlos Sainz, unfortunately, he's got a little bit of damage into turn 1. It's a yellow flag in sectors 1 and 2. The Ferrari is out of this race potentially as he's had to pull off. But the two McLarens now sitting second and third. Charles Leclerc having to defend from Piastri right behind him. Then it's George Russell. Then Max Verstappen. It almost looks like Hamilton's almost going to lose a position there, but not able to. But Piastri's following so closely to Charles Leclerc on his back. Will he be able to make a move straight away in the opening lap here? He's right on the back of the Ferrari. Will he try and make a diving lunge? He won't yet. He's just going to have to hold on to it. He might just wait for DRS on the main straight just to get even closer to him next round. But it seems Perez has also got an issue. Perez is, it's red flagged. We've red flagged the race. Red flag has been called on the race because of where the position of the cars are. We've got a few cars having a crash. We didn't see it. Oh my word, Perez's car is completely disassembled. We've got 3 cars there. It looks like both Haas's and Perez's car, they're all out of the car already. It's a terrible start in terms of damage. We've got 4 cars already out of this race, and look at the amount of damage and debris on the track. It's ridiculous. My word, Perez's car is in shambles. I've never seen a car this season look in such poor repair. Both his front tires underneath the car, his back rear tire is missing. Everything else is just, I mean, somehow he gets out of that track absolutely fine. The two Haas's also facing each other the wrong way around. My word, it's been a ridiculous opening lap here. I want to see a replay of this. We didn't see this crash, but my word, what a big crash, ladies and gentlemen. And a red flag rightfully called. 3 cars right across the track, debris everywhere. And what a frantic start we've had there. Unfortunate for Carlos Sainz. He clearly picked up a little bit of damage when trying to challenge with Oscar Piastri. But good to see all the drivers out of the car. But the amount of damage on the track, and to Perez's car in particular, is just massive. Absolutely massive. My word, did not see that at all. And we haven't seen a replay of it yet, but I want to see what happened there. I imagine Perez must have ridden up on somebody's car for both of his tires to be underneath his car. But he's missing his wing, he's missing his back left tire, he's missing his front 2 tires, which are now currently placed underneath the car. The car is ruined. The car is completely ruined. And just to see where this collision all happened is going to be the next thing. So now we're watching a replay finally here. It's coming after that fast section. Obviously, in the beginning, Perez just goes straight into the wall. He goes straight into the wall, rear right, collides with the Haas, as does the previous Haas behind him. Also, just collides with a lot of damage. Big impact there amongst the back there. And luckily, one car at the back they managed to make it out without too much damage. But Perez completely getting taken off into the wall there. I don't know how he managed to do that, but must have picked up a little bit of contact. I imagine somebody might have just gone into the back of Perez, and that's why his car just spins wildly into the right-hand turn. That's going to be my guess. We're still going to wait for some replays as we now see one of the Haas's lifted up, taken off of the Monaco circuit. And Oscar Piastri is already out the car in his special livery, of course, a special outfit for this weekend to honor his time and McLaren's time during those years. Everybody pretty much out of the cars. It's going to take a lengthy time to get these cars off the track, and a lot of debris they're going to have to sweep up here in Monaco. My word, I didn't think we'd see that sort of level incident in the opening lap here, but indeed we have already. A red flag straight away in lap 1. We haven't even completed the second lap of this race. So, watching a replay of the race start here, I think this is where we're going to see Carlos Sainz pick up a little bit of damage. He gets a brilliant start compared to Piastri. Goes on inside of Piastri. Does manage to get ahead of Piastri into turn 1. Piastri goes around the outside, and Sainz doesn't give him space. Takes a little bit of damage on his front left, which seems to give himself a puncture, we believe. And he just slows down a lot compared to everybody else. And the two, Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri, just lead off into the distance. And Carlos Sainz, unfortunately, they can't make that right turn following that section. And that's where we then look at Sergio Perez around the back there as well in terms of where he goes. But a brilliant start there by Carlos Sainz. Max Verstappen tried to take it to Lewis Hamilton as well. And Lewis Hamilton almost also doing the same thing as Carlos Sainz, but managing to, again, just to go to the outside, just to lose a little bit of time, but also hold on to his car. Then we watch Perez and the two Haas's behind. Oh, that's what happens there. It's My word, Magnussen seems to go on the outside of Perez. Perez on the inside, and Perez can't go anywhere because he's got both Haas's on either side of him, and unfortunately just runs out of space, just one of the Haas's and the wall, and just collides with Perez on his inside, which forces Perez to turn right into the wall. The other pass to go straight into him and then take out the Haas on the far left as well. So a hell of a collision. My word, what a collision. But luckily, everybody's all right, and now we're just clearing the track. It's a brilliant start by Carlos Sainz, but unfortunately just gets held out a little bit. Piastri's got nowhere else to go, but otherwise to hold that outside line. Perez then coming in on him, gets a puncture on his front left. You can just see it, obviously, his tyre just locking up the whole way around that far left turner. And as he tries to make that right turn, he just has to dive out of it. He gives up and he breaks into the wall. Everybody else goes around him. It's very unfortunate for Carlos Sainz. He can't do much for it. Watching Sergio Perez's start, must have had a poor start, as they said. But he actually has a decent start on the Williams right ahead of him. I think it's because he finds all the traffic into turn one. He just unfortunately can't get around again. Then the kick Saubers just get past him so easily as a result. So he's trying on the middle of the track here, and then boom, gets taken out. He gets taken out by one of the Haas's, and then he spins off into the other Haas, taking both Haas's out of this race, who also didn't even do anything in the race as a result of some. Obviously, we had rules that were taken there. Just watching Nico Hülkenberg's thing. It's Nico Hülkenberg, clearly, that's the Haas that did take out Perez. He tried to go on the outside of Perez. No, it wasn't. It was, in fact, Magnussen that makes the collision. Hülkenberg's on the left. Magnussen tries the outside of Perez, runs out of space, takes out Perez's back left, then pushes him basically into the wall. As Perez comes back off the wall, he hits Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg saying, damn it, that was unnecessary in response to being asked if he was okay by his engineer. I think he's actually making remarks on Magnussen. I think he's saying Magnussen tried a really unnecessary move there going up on the inside. I think Magnussen is actually the one who really does cause this fight. He should have backed off. There was no space for him to get through there, and he wasn't alongside Perez. Needed to back off the Kevin Magnussen, but didn't, and then as a result, just gets caught out, and as a result, also takes out his teammate. So really unfortunate for the two Haas's there. Nico Hülkenberg not being the cause of that crash at all, but Kevin Magnussen clearly being the reason. Yeah, it's a really, really surprising thing to see from Kevin Magnussen, such an experienced driver, but making such a poor mistake there. And before he makes contact with Perez, he touches the wall himself, Magnussen, just slightly with his right-hand tyre, then comes back onto the left, which just happens to be Sergio Perez's car as well, and then all the entire accident ensues. I mean, Max Verstappen watching. Yeah, Max Verstappen just reacting to that crash, really quite gobsmacked by it. A lot of the reactions quite serious across the whole pit crew there. Unfortunate for Sergio Perez, it's no fault of his own. It's just Magnussen. And yeah, they make a good point, the commentators. If he gets 2 penalty points or more in this race, he'll be banned from the next race. Kevin Magnussen, that is, of course, because as James says in the comments there, Magnussen has been a menace this whole season. I'll be amazed if he gets to see the next one. Kevin Magnussen should have ducked out. Wasn't worth the place at the point of this race. Basically racing for last place. But yeah, Kevin Magnussen is getting so many penalties. If he gets 2 or more in this race as a result of that incident there, which I think he's going to, he takes 2 cars out of the race as well as his own, and serious dangerous driving, he will be banned from the next race. So, yeah. Yeah, interesting thing here, as TC brings up, can Sainz repair his car and restart? Yes, he can. It's in fact, they will have a normal restart again, given the fact it's only lap 1. It's very likely that we're going to have a proper restart again, same restart we had as well, a standing restart, a standing start. And as a result of Sainz not having any damage and didn't retire out of the race yet, and it's the first lap incident, he will be allowed to race still. So he just needs to get a new tire on. Unfortunately for him, though, he's only going to be able to start in what we imagine as 16th position, as that's when the red flag was called, or not necessarily when the red flag was called, but at least he will start. I think it's in 60th position / 17th position with Joe Guanyu as well. So he'll start the race, but he'll start right at the back, basically, for Carlos Sainz. But at least he's still in this race. He can still challenge, and given the fact that we've already got 4 cars out, well, the 3 cars now, because Sainz will continue. 3 cars out of this race already. Maybe more cars go out. Maybe he can somehow fight his way into the top 10, get a few points for himself. But yeah, he will and should be able to actually participate in this race still. Going to the comments quickly. K-Mag on so many penalties now. A race ban is inevitable. Yes, indeed, as I say. Pure Blood. Magnussen doing his job of spicing up the season. Ken Magnussen has 1 point in the half, which is already crazy. TC, can Sainz repair his car? Yes, he can. Feel bad for Perez. He can't catch brake. No, he can't. Watching a replay of Esteban Ocon. Esteban Ocon just riding curbs a little bit, and he makes an attempt at overtake. He makes. I didn't realize he got a huge bit of contact as well in the opening lap. Didn't realize that as well. He was sliding all over the place coming into the tunnel section, and it's with his teammate Pierre Gasly that he seems to have got this fight with. And Hulkenberg comes on his inside, tries to come across him. Hulkenberg comes across his line, rides over his tire. And Gasly's going to say this: what did he do? What did he do? Why did he try to attack me? Oh my gosh! That being in response to his teammate. So as usual. Red flag is called. The whole car is damaged now. As usual, Gasly and Ocon just having it out even more with each other now. The two Alpine drivers really, really having it out with each other. They had a really, really tumultuous season. They don't like each other at all. And Ocon's little incident there with his teammate Gasly, Ocon that is, going into the tunnels, just rides over his front right tire of Gasly's, does Ocon, and pretty much ruins his car, goes on the side, damage to his side, drops down on the front wing of Gasly, which damages his car as well. I mean, absolutely bizarre first lap. Gasly must be, and he has every right to be furious, Gasly. Ocon absolutely nowhere in terms of trying to take him to that corner there. Could not control his car at all and just goes straight over his teammate's tire. So what a minute of Grand Prix, Grand Prix we've had. My word, it's been a frenetic start. Not usually exciting Grand Prix in terms of overtakes, but certainly in damage and accidents. Well, we've had 3 big incidents in the opening minutes of this Monte Carlo race. My word. As Lindy says, the stewards will be working extra hard today to try and figure out who's getting penalties and whatnot for the next race as well, because, I mean, there's going to be some serious things there. Does Ocon get a penalty for his taking out his teammate or damaging his teammate? I don't know what happens there. Luckily, the 2 Aston Martins have come out of it quite well. Stroll's now in 10th position, Alonso in 12th, so they've made up a few positions themselves for Aston Martin. They've done really, really well there. Bottas as well managed to make up 3 positions into 14th now. So they're going to be chuffed with the restart now as they come around. Alonso and Stroll will be starting much closer to the points here. Stroll's in the points already. So Aston Martin can try and make use of that. Everybody's obviously made up a position pretty much in the top 10 with the exception of Leclerc and Piastri as a result of Sainz's puncture to his front left. So Sainz is going to start right at the back of the grid now, trying to fight his way back forward. Charles Leclerc still in first, which is the main thing as well, which he'll be chuffed about. Yeah, really, what a frenetic start. Pure Blood says Piastri's going to win, Leclerc P2, Norris P3. Well, I'll tell you something, Piastri was really, really close to the back of Leclerc that whole first lap until the red flag. So I think it should be quite an interesting race for the rest of it in terms of following. Obviously, degradation is quite high on the McLaren tyres after that. But again, pit stop strategies are going to be huge here between McLaren and Ferrari. And Verstappen will be licking his lips as well for any mistakes further up the grid. Russell's also now in 4th position. So again, we're just permanently moving up and looking a little bit closer. The McLaren's now 2nd and 3rd. So I wonder how they're going to manage that as a team. James says, so 2 Haas's are out, 1 Red Bull's out, 2 Alpines are damaged, 1 Ferrari is damaged. Is that about right? That is pretty much about right. Although Carlos Sainz only nudged the tyre into Piastri. So realistically, if they change that tyre, which they will have done now, he doesn't or shouldn't have any damage to his car. So he should be all right. But yeah, he has now taken a significant hit in this race and will be starting right at the back of it. Due to that contact he had with Oscar Piastri. Bob saying, Pure Blood, I highly doubt that with regards to Piastri's going to win. I don't think that's highly doubtable at all. Yanni here saying, there's so much car damage and confusion, they should call the race and give it the win to Max. It's the only thing that makes sense. Clearly a Max fan. Are they restarting, says Mimi. Yes, they will be restarting, but we haven't got a time yet. They've just got to take a lot of debris off the track or fix up the barriers, which have now been damaged. Got to get those cars off the track, got to recover everything. There's damage all over the place as a result of all these incidents. It's been a manic opening lap here in Monaco. TC say, Piastri needs to work on his time management. Once he does, he'll be phenomenal. Well, I don't necessarily think he needs to work on it as much as it's just, you know, the McLaren's tire degradation is quite a bit higher than the Ferraris and the Red Bulls. And look, Norris had to manage it as well. I think Piastri is there and thereabouts with Norris. I think he's a serious talent. I think he's going to be a future world champion, and he's certainly already become one of my favorite drivers in the grid. He's such a relaxed guy. He races really aggressively. He's a really good racer. He's intelligent about how he races, makes some good overtakes. He's so mature for such a young lad, and I really am keen to see what he can do. And he's got a really good chance here to somehow steal a win away from the home driver in Charles Leclerc. I mean, starting at second, as I say, he was really close to the back of him that whole first lap. So if that's an indication of pace for McLaren, Piastri could try and do something here, and that could be something very interesting to see how Ferrari managed that and how McLaren handled that as well. Sergio Perez, rather, is walking down the pit lane, and I'm sure he'll be just giving a little bit of a wave to the crowd there in terms of, unfortunately, he's out of this race. No fault of his own. I think he looks a little bit irritated, maybe a little bit dejected, as he has every right to be. But yeah. As I say, guys, all of this is being brought to you by Forever Motorsports, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and otherwise, if you haven't already, like the video right now, and hopefully we'll have some racing very soon. And be sure to go check out our channel sponsor, BITDEFENDER, which is something that Kevin Magnussen should probably learn about, is how to defend and how to protect your personal belongings and digital devices, which technically a Formula One car these days is. So yeah, be sure to go check out BITDEFENDER for all your cybersecurity needs, and for award-winning cybersecurity, go and check the description of the video and click on that link to get an affiliate code discount to get BITDEFENDER for all your personal devices to defend yourself from cybersecurity and cyber attacks and all these various things. And as I say, BITDEFENDER could their cars, as I say. Yeah, there's so many yachts inside the bay here in Monaco. Super yachts and otherwise, and there's a Bugatti on the front of one of these yachts, and everybody's saying it's such a waste of a beautiful car, which I agree. But I mean, the number of billionaires that have just made their way out for this weekend is absurd. Of course, this is the most expensive event probably of the whole calendar year. I don't think anything quite matches to a Monaco Grand Prix. This is basically the pinnacle of money, the pinnacle of showing off. Millionaires playground, billionaires playground even. And yeah, we can just see all the money there, and Formula One cars as well, just the pinnacle of motorsport and research, development, and fast cars, essentially. Just showing what the human mind is capable of building in terms of just going really fast around and spending all of everybody's money. So we've got Liam Lawson having a chat with Daniel Ricciardo in the V-Carb pit box there, just having a chat about the opening laps there, looking at obviously Ricciardo and Tsunoda. Tsunoda's now into 7th position, Ricciardo in 11th, so they could also both get into the points here for V-Carb, which could be quite an interesting one as well. TC asking, did have a spare car for Perez? Well, he wouldn't be allowed to use it, unfortunately. He is very much out of this race. Hülkenberg, Perez, and Magnussen very much out of this race. They will not be able to continue because you have to, whatever car you start in is what you finish in, and if there's too much damage to the car to continue, it will not be allowed. So yes, he will not be able to come into a spare car, but if you talk about spare car for the next Grand Prix, I'm sure they do have one. They have a spare chassis, I'm sure, available. I don't think he's ruined a chassis yet, if I'm correct, this season. Maybe he has. But yeah, that car that he's got right now is ruined. Absolutely ruined. Superman asking comments here saying, would Behrman replace Kevin Magnussen since they both use Ferrari engines? I wouldn't. That's actually a really interesting one. I don't think Kevin Magnussen would be sacked just yet, but I certainly think he's not doing himself any favors right now with the amount of damage he's dealt to Haas this season already and his performances so far. So yeah, I mean, that's certainly an interesting theory there. I quite like that, actually. Bob, being a Checo fan is harder than being a Ferrari fan easily. Race controllers noted the order for the restart is cars 16, 81, 55. 55? Which one is 55? Is that Russell? No. Is that Sainz? Hang on. 55, isn't that Sainz? Confirm for me in the comment section quickly. Number 55 is Sainz, isn't it? Russell is definitely number 4, which means he's starting in... No, it's Norris. It's Norris. Or is Norris 4? I can't remember. Who's which car number? Carlos Sainz is 55, so yeah, he will start in 3rd. So the car for the restart, Carlos Sainz will in fact still start right up there. So that's a really weird one. So I was saying, because when I saw 55, I was like, I have to rack my brain. It's like, I'm 90% certain that's Carlos Sainz. It is Carlos Sainz, which means Sainz is actually going to be gifted an opportunity to get out of jail free card for that damage he put to his front left tire. And he's going to start right up in this position that he started with anyway. So super, super lucky for Ferrari. I think people might have some serious issues with that. I personally have a little bit of an issue with that, given the fact that he was the reason that he dropped, because he made the contact. But Carlos Sainz is now going to start in third position, which is where he started the race initially. I think that's obviously because you had to complete more than half a lap before the red flag in order for positions to change and be given. I think that's one of the rules, which is going to be applied here. So everybody will return to the same positions with the exception of those who are out, obviously. But it's still an odd one for me, that rule, the fact that Sainz essentially was the reason he started, he took damage and was more or less out of this race. And now he's just going to be given a get out of jail free card, and he'll start ahead of Norris. Norris will be very upset about this, I'm sure. Most of the grid might be quite upset about it. It's a really, really strange one to me. But I think that is the rule. You have to complete half a lap before the red flag in order for you to change positions. And they definitely hadn't completed half a lap before that red flag was given, which means the original positions will be given back to all the drivers, those who are still in the race, obviously, after the incident, and they'll continue again in the race restart. So we basically haven't had the start of Monaco Grand Prix, but we have lost both Haas and Perez, and we're just restarting the race. That's more or less what's going to happen. So it'll go back to the original starting positions, and those who are behind Sergio Perez, Hülkenberg, and Magnussen will start ahead of them in that same order. So really, really, really weird one. Oh, and as James pointed out earlier, both Alpines will also start the race now with damage due to Ocon's stupidity. So a really, 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 really funny one. And yeah, this will be interesting. They have given the race restart order. They haven't given the time for the restart, but I imagine that should be given within the next few minutes, because most of the debris is gone from the track. In which case, we'll get that 10-minute warning. They have to get a 10-minute warning before we can get going with that, because all the drivers are currently still out of the cars right now. We're just having a look at all of the expensive boxes and bars and things that are operating for this weekend, and all these very, very famous people and people with money that are just chilling here in Monaco. Carlos Sainz, as I say, being given a get out of jail free card, he'll be starting at third position. So he's still got another chance to do some stuff here. So, wow. Ruby asking the question, Alpine restarting with damage. Yes, well, Ocon rode over Gasly's front right tire, and he's definitely damaged parts of the bodywork there, and Ocon's definitely damaged some of his floor, so they're both going to be riding with a little bit of damage around the track. How much damage is still yet to be seen, but I wonder how Ocon and Gasly will react when they see each other, because I don't think Ocon's got any sort of rope to stand on or anything to stand on. Go to the comments section here. TC making a joke, is Michael Massey the race director again? Yeah, it could be quite a funny one there. Lobio saying, why is everybody writing the numbers of the drivers? Can someone explain? I did ask, just to confirm what number Carlos Sainz was. He is number 55, which is what I thought it was. So yeah, just watching a race restart replay again. Piastri had to really just go to that outside line, and Sainz just didn't come back enough, and so took damage to his front left tire. And then watching that replay of Sergio Perez and Kevin Magnussen's incident, which then results in Hülkenberg being taken out as well. And the lucky thing about how Formula One works is that that safety car was directly behind that incident, saw it, and was right on the scene within literally 15 seconds. I mean, not even 15 seconds, like 5 seconds basically, is right there. So that's the whole benefit of having that safety car follow on the first lap of the race, is to make sure that any instance they are there straight away, because the opening lap is often the most dangerous lap of any Formula One race. So good on the safety car there for following really, really well. Yeah. Bob just saying, McLaren's livery is so drippy and looking very, very good. It is very good looking. I do love it for this weekend, and I'm so glad they actually ditched the papaya completely this weekend when they did a special livery, because last Silverstone everybody was so looking forward to the chrome livery that they were going to run, and then they had half of the papaya, half chrome. Like, it sort of worked, it sort of didn't. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't amazing either. They could have done it so much better. But this season for Monaco, when they said we're doing an Ayrton Senna one, they released it. It was awesome, and it is awesome on track. It's great to see those colors again on the track as well, and it really does look incredible. Haas garage are not happy about that incident, as I say, with Perez. Both Haas out of this race. Zhou Guanyu's view of this whole incident is also quite interesting. He had a terrible start, actually, Zhou Guanyu. Both Haas's overtaken very, very easily. He drops down to 20th, then watches Kevin Magnussen go on the outside of Perez, hit the wall, hit Perez, then Perez goes into the wall, spins out, hits Hulkenberg, and Zhou's just watching this all from behind and having to avoid all the debris behind that as well. So yeah, he'll have another chance to at least go ahead, and hopefully the Haas's won't overtake him in this race restart. It'll be a bit difficult. They'll both be out of this race, as he also just drives very, very casually past the tire of Sergio Perez, which just walks by. It's going very, very slowly. There's Zhou Guanyu around the incident, which is very good of him, just to make sure that he didn't get in the way, didn't have any sort of danger with the safety car, and all the drivers that were in that incident went exceptionally slowly around just to make sure absolutely everybody was safe. Oh dear. Fluffy Al just saying, as a papaya fan, I agree. The half chrome, half papaya was terrible. That was last year's Silverstone race, of course. Howdy, just joined, says Stefan. What happened? Well, what didn't happen? 3 large and big incidents in the first lap of Monaco caused a red flag straight away before even halfway through the lap. We had an immediate incident at turn 1 between Carlos Sainz and Oscar Piastri. Sainz had a brilliant start on Piastri, tried to go on his inside of him. Piastri managed to come out of turn 1 just ahead of him, but Carlos Sainz couldn't turn his car just enough and collided a little bit with his front left tire, and Piastri's car got a puncture as a result of that clipping. And then going into that second right-hander on the track, he dived out, and everybody managed to get past him, and he was initially out of the race as a result of that. But at the same time, just behind him was Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, and Hulkenberg getting involved in a big crash as well. Kevin Magnussen, the cause of that, he tried to stick his nose out on the outside going around that fast section just after turn 1, and unfortunately space ran out, collided with Perez. Perez then collided with Hulkenberg, all 3 cars out of the race as a result. Then further down the trip, just before the red flag and just before the tunnel section, we see Ocon really sliding around a lot and going on the curb quite a lot as well, trying to overtake his teammate Pierre Gasly, fighting him, and took a really, really weird line just going around that final corner just before the tunnel section. And as he goes over it, just goes way too wide over it and goes straight over his teammate Gasly's tire and lifts his whole car over the front right tire of Pierre Gasly, damaging arguably both cars as well. So what an opening lap. And we will have a restart now with everybody in their same positions again, except for those who will not be able to restart. So I think it's going to be another frantic restart, I think, after they've just given the race restart time. There we go. Sorry, as I was just saying all of that, Race Control has announced that we will resume racing at 15:44 local time. That is 3:44 in the afternoon in Monaco. Christian Horner and Sergio Perez now having a chat with each other, all shaking their heads at each other. And I don't think anybody's going to blame Sergio Perez for this. Nobody's upset with him. Everybody's just upset about the situation because he's out of this race as a result of Kevin Magnussen's serious error there. Oscar Piastri now getting all his racing gear back on because he knows he's just been given the race restart time here, which means that it's certainly time to start getting ready again for McLaren. Again, race control has started. The race will resume at 15:44 local time. That is in 11 minutes time. I enjoy Yanni's comment there. Haas teamed up to take out Perez, so Perez won't win the race. Well, given the fact that he was starting all the way down in 16th position, I don't think he was anywhere near winning a race here in Monaco. Give me 2 seconds, guys. I'm going to get some water whilst we do have that announcement of when the race will restart. In the comments, let me know, as a result of all of these changes and Carlos Sainz going back up to third, who is your top 3 for this race? I'm very keen to find out your thoughts about that as well. Just before I leave, I'm just watching a replay of Charles Leclerc. Just goes past that red flag. Team radio said, no, he was asking, was everybody okay? Saying everybody is fine. Carlos had a puncture. They didn't explain about the Haas's and Perez though. Piastri also going around, gets a team radio. What does he say? Yeah, Piastri just telling his team to check the floor on the right side when that red flag was announced. That's because that's where Carlos Sainz made contact with his car. So just making sure that his car is okay. He's such a relaxed driver, Piastri. He really is. Nice on the radio as well. Just asking, is everybody okay? And just been told quite a few cars are out. Everybody's okay, but quite a few cars are out. So yes, also interesting to hear those radio messages as the Grand Prix goes around. So the red flag is still underway, of course. The race will resume at 15:44 local time. Let me get some water. I'll be back right now. So they're all just doing some analysis of all those incidents earlier. Without imagery, I can't really give you much more than what I've already said. So again, just people in the comments can help those out who might not have seen it already. But all the car drivers getting back into their cars. Fernando Alonso also one of the first into the car for himself. He's running a special livery for this weekend as well. I mean, a special helmet rather. For this weekend. So Oscar Piastri now also getting back into his. So cool. I so love what McLaren did this weekend. Their livery. It really is awesome. Such a tribute to Ayrton Senna as well, and that era of McLaren cars. Max Verstappen looking very cool and calm and collected inside his Red Bull again. And yeah, we're gonna get going again very, very shortly in just about 8 minutes time. They'll go around for another alternate formation lap, which is technically not, because they will cross the line. They'll technically start lap 2. And then we will get started with the race, basically. Just watching some analysis. Just watching some analysis here of the incident between Perez and Hülkenberg and Magnussen. I will give you some information now. Watching a really, really slow replay. Just seeing what Sergio Perez does to react. So they reckon Sergio Perez actually goes slightly to the right, closing that gap to Kevin Magnussen slightly, because he sees Hülkenberg really, really close to his left-hand side. He might have thought that Hülkenberg was a little bit more alongside him than he was, so he chose to the right just to avoid Hülkenberg, not realizing Kevin Magnussen's within that as well. Not necessarily Sergio Perez's fault, again, because that space is always running out. So yeah, they're just talking about whether or not Kevin Magnussen will be handed 2 penalty points, in which case he will be banned for a race this season. And yeah, I mean, if that does happen, that's the first time we've seen that in a long, long, long time. Pureblood saying it's Perez's fault. Well, I will say this much. As much as it is Magnussen 100%, he's stupid to try and make that move. You're never going to make that move stick. Perez does have a little bit more liability to come around, but the problem is that you are technically allowed to defend if the car is not more than halfway across your car. The other car needs to back out. They need to take control for that situation. So Magnussen gets squeezed, and he's not nearly far enough alongside Perez for Perez to then be necessarily at fault. I think Perez can avoid that contact. I think if Perez goes to the left a little bit, he avoids that contact, but it's not his fault that the contact happened, if that makes sense. Perez is not 100% innocent of it, but the majority of the blame is to be on Magnussen. Magnussen should just lift off the throttle slightly there. As soon as he sees that gap starting to close, lift off that throttle and let Perez go ahead of him and go back to it. If you really want to argue something, you can argue it afterwards. But what you don't do is continue down that path, hoping that the gap somehow just going to get bigger again. It's not going to. Adventurous Nomad says the stewards have called it a racing incident. Kevin Magnussen doesn't get points for it. Well, if you might, just to state straight back to you, they're not actually investigating Kevin Magnussen as necessarily. I don't think that's the incident they're talking about. They're talking more about Carlos Sainz and Piastri. That's the turn 1 incident. They're not classifying the Haas's and Perez as the turn 1 incident. I'm going to keep quiet because Kevin Magnussen, Mika Hulkenberg is getting interviewed about this incident. So let's hear what he has to say. Says he's gutted, to be honest. He got taken out by an incident he wasn't directly involved in. It's a big shame. Things were getting a bit too tight there, he's saying. Nico Hulkenberg also saying exactly what I was saying. So it was really too opportunistic from Kevin Magnussen, but Checo might have been able to come back across. He doesn't know, but at the end of the day, yeah, so just saying that Red Bull's got significant damage, probably a write-off. He didn't see Kevin's car all that much. But yeah, clearly dejected, quite upset about that whole incident there, which he has every right to, because it wasn't his incident that he was involved with. It was Kevin Magnussen and Sergio Perez took each other out. And then Perez comes straight back off the wall into Hulkenberg as a result. So all the drivers in their cars, we're 3 minutes away from the race resumption time, which is 15:44. We will, of course, have them basically go out for an alternative format to a formation lap. They will go back around for one more lap and have a restart one more time, which means that we might well have another incident just like this one. And if we do, then the race will be shortened because we've already lost 40 minutes of time from the beginning of the race. The race, of course, the formation lap gets going at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We're now 42 minutes past that. We're still in lap 1 of 78 laps. So there might be a small possibility of Esteban Ocon starting from the pit lane as a result of changing something on the car. And a standing start procedure. Esteban Ocon will not be able to continue the race. Yes, we're just seeing footage of it. Esteban Ocon's not in the car. He's in his jeans and his team outfit. So yeah, there's apparently too much damage to the Alpine of his that he's not going to be able to continue this race. So we will only have 16 cars. And it's not a car that I thought was not going to be able to continue. But indeed, Kevin, there's clearly, as I said, that both Alpines would start the race with damage. In fact, one of the Alpines has got too much damage. They're not even going to be able to do that. Ocon will not continue this race. He is out. He will no longer be able to participate. We only have 16 cars in this race. Indeed, we're just saying might be out. He is out. Ocon is out of this race. He will not continue. So we've only got 16 cars for the remainder of this race, 1 Alpine, 1 Red Bull, and no Haas's rather either. Everybody else still got their cars out there. Sainz will again get out of jail free card and start up there in 3rd position. We're 1 minute away. All the tire blankets have been taken off the cars. They're in the pits. We're about to get going with Monaco racing one more time. And then we will get going again. Fred is making a joke about the fact that I talk relatively quickly, saying, "Can you talk as slow as possible?" Though, I apologize. I get a little bit excited about the whole thing, and I'm trying to get as much information crammed in as possible before various things happen. So we've got the Ferraris, of course, getting ready to go out. Charles Leclerc going to be leading them out as well. And here we go. Yeah, Charles Leclerc does take them out of the pits. Oscar Piastri follows him, followed by Carlos Sainz, then Lando Norris in that McLaren as well. 5th place will be George Russell, still there, and then Max Verstappen. So everybody's basically going out in the formation lap version 2.0 at about 3:45 local time here in Monaco. Yes, I like Fluffy Owl's comment there. I talk as fast as an F1 car. Indeed, exactly that. We're watching as a very, very fast racing, and so you're going to get some very fast commentary with that as well. I do warn, regardless of what you might say or what you might think I should do or should not do with commentary, the moment we start a lap again, I'm going to be talking as blitz as possible to get whatever's happening out on track to you guys watching around the world. And as I say that, of course, I know a lot of people watch from various countries, and I know most of the countries they watch from. But if you guys are brand new to the channel and you guys haven't managed to tell me or leave a comment for me before, please let me know where you are tuning in from around the world and who you do support as well. And if you guys haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like this video right now, and check out our channel partner, BITDEFENDER, in the description there. BITDEFENDER for all your cybersecurity needs and award-winning cybersecurity. Take the description for that link there and follow that. If you guys are looking for a way to watch Formula One for free, you guys can also go and check out the description as well. There's a little explanation and an instructions manual, as it were, on how you guys can do that. So looking at the tires right now for this race restart, Charles Leclerc, Piastri, Sainz, and Norris all starting on the hard tires. Russell, Verstappen, and Hamilton starting on the mediums. Tsunoda, Albon on the hards, Gasly, Stroll on the mediums, Ricciardo on the hard, Alonso on the medium, Sargent on the hard, Bottas on the medium, Zhou on the hard. And those are the 16 cars remaining in this race. So the final car of Zhou Guanyu is going through the tunnel section now, which is quite far away from the start of the of the race. So we've already got Charles Leclerc, Piastri, and people waiting at the front of the grid already for these cars to come out. So their tires are going to be a little bit cooler than those at the back, obviously. Norris on the radio. So basically, Norris has just been told by his race engineer to worry around the cars behind him more than those in front, because all of those in front of him are on hards. Those behind him immediately are all in the medium, so they're going to be a little bit faster at this race restart. So basically being told to check his mirrors as he starts this race to try and make sure he doesn't get caught out. So the final cars now making their way out onto the grid. We've got the McLarens and the Ferraris and everybody in the front 10 now aligned. Zhou Guanyu, the final driver of the 16 remaining. We're going to get going again with racing here in Monaco. Zhou Guanyu gets into position. Here we go. The green flag is waved for the second time today. 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights. No lights at all. And Ferrari off to a brilliant start again. Piastri, much better start this time to try and defend, as does Lando Norris, who's trying to take into turn 1 for Carlos Sainz. But he's going to have to give up on that attempt right now. No contact so far throughout the rest of the grid. A little bit cleaner in Sector 1 so far. Charles Leclerc leads this race. Piastri in second. Carlos Sainz in third. And Max Verstappen is now going to get chased down by Lewis Hamilton as he is chasing George Russell. So no contact yet, although it seems a Sauber and a Williams right in the back there. It looks like Bottas and Sargent having it out with each other, a little bit close to each other, as Fernando Alonso also seems to be getting caught out a little bit. Sainz is starting to drop a little bit further back than Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri, so a little bit of a concern there perhaps, as we now come to that hairpin section, the 2 Saubers, Kick Saubers, and the Williams of Sargent. Yes, indeed, and Bottas has taken Sargent, so I did think that was going to happen. So Bottas has managed to make a position up on Logan Sargent, and he now moves into 14th as we come out of the tunnel section. And again, Oscar Piastri really following Charles Leclerc quite well. Sainz dropping off ever so slightly, as does Lando Norris from Carlos Sainz. George Russell really close now to the back of Lando Norris, and this is going to be a battle that I think we're going to see immediately because he is on the medium tire rather, George Russell, Lando Norris on the hard tire. That's what they were saying just before the start of this race. Look in your rearview mirrors. You've got medium tire behind you, and you're on hard tires, so do not lose position in these opening few laps. Let them waste their medium tires so that it doesn't make any effect. So it's going to be a frustrating start there. And also, Lewis Hamilton's really dropped off the back of Max Verstappen already. So that's a small concern for Lewis Hamilton. I mean, that gap to Max Verstappen is already quite big. Charles Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, Sainz, and Norris all pretty much with each other. Russell right on the back of Norris. DRS is now enabled. Not that it makes too much of a difference in this section of the track, but as they come around the start-finish, that should mean the likes of George Russell and Oscar Piastri and those within a second of each other, of course, will get DRS and just stick with them as we enter lap 4 of 78 here in Monaco. Now into the tunnel section as they make all the noise possible. And again, George Russell's getting very close to the back of Lando Norris's McLaren, but not able to make any sort of move yet. He's not quite close enough. And again, it's so difficult around this track to do something that, in fact, he's just going to have to follow as long as possible and just make sure that the pit stop strategy is perfect for everybody involved. Lap 5 now of 78. So just a reminder as well for a little bit of strategy that might be happening around the track. Unfortunately, I don't think any of that sort of thing is going to happen because of the tire degradation likelihood. But some drivers have changed their tire from that initial restart to the alternative tire, which means they have had their mandatory different tire compound. You don't have to stop in a race. You just have to change compound, which usually means a stop. But if there's a red flag, like we've had, you've now had that stop. So it also means that if they come back into the pits, they can go straight back onto the same tire they've basically been racing the whole race on. So you don't have to go to the hard if you've started on the hard and then gone straight to the mediums now. You don't have to go to the hard again. You can stay on the mediums or the alternative, vice versa. So really interesting. We might have that sort of thing play a part in this race now. Watching a replay of the restart, you just see how well Ferrari start again compared to the McLarens, but the McLarens this time luckily holding on to their positions a little bit better. As we're still following here with Charles Leclerc and the likes and all of those behind, just getting so close to the walls here in Monaco as well. And the following distances are good. McLarens are holding on to the Ferraris very well. George has now dropped off ever so slightly from Lando Norris, so it's not as close as it was. The DRS is being used by those in attendance at the front, but George Russell seems to be dropping off even on the medium tire to those ahead of him. So lap 6 of 78, we still have those McLarens and those Ferraris fighting out in the top 4. It's really close between the 4 of them. George Russell's really far back compared to Norris already. He's dropped off more or less almost 2 seconds from him, so maybe the medium tire not the favorable one. Max Verstappen is within a second of George Russell, but actually not even. Russell being told no need to stick to Norris this close to Norris at this stage, just manage the tires. And he's saying this is the only chance. So George Russell wants to try and challenge and take Norris immediately, but he's been told to manage his medium tires here. So that's why he's had to back off. And Max Verstappen as well seems to be also managing tires here because he's quite far off the leaders already, down in 6th position. So he's 7.2 seconds behind the leader, Charles Leclerc. Oscar Piastri is within a second. Sainz is within a second of Oscar Piastri. And Norris is within a second of Carlos Sainz. But then after that, then there's a bit of a gap. So it's the McLarens and the Ferraris race right now. It's a weird one to go in the medium tire and then go slower than those on the hard tire because the medium tire, regardless of how slow you're going to be, is going to degrade quicker than the hard tire, which means those on the hards can keep this pace up for a lot longer. And they're going quicker than the medium tires. So those in the mediums right now might be thinking, the hell did we do? The hell did we do that for? Unless they're going to try and go for a long, hard stint at the end of this race. But even then, you're going to have to try and make up quite a lot of positions during that stint when you go back out to those hard tires and to really push those hard tires to the max so that you can try and make up the lost time right now on those mediums. Quite frankly, it's a very, very bizarre situation right now with these medium tires. George Russell is already almost 4 seconds off the back of Norris. Piastri on the radio. He says, we do see the impact of the damage. It looks like the aero balance is sensible at least. Basically being told he actually does have a bit of damage, but it's not going to really affect him all that much. So he must just keep going and just be sensible with it. Nothing's gone wrong too much, but just manage the car. There is a tiny bit of damage as he does just drop out of DRS right now to Charles Leclerc in the leader's position. And Sainz now started to try and make a battle for second with Oscar Piastri. Russell's radio. Yeah, George Russell is not liking and managing his tires right now. He's 3.2 seconds off the back of Norris. He's asking if he has to manage his pace around the entire track or just turns 3, 4, and 5. Try and stop degradation on these tires too much. So not enjoying it right now. He says if he continues at the pace he's going to open up a pit stop opportunity for those ahead. So basically saying, I'm not agreeing and I'm not enjoying what we're doing right now, and it's not looking fun for him. The front four still fighting it out. Lando Norris is 1.5 seconds behind Sainz, though. Oscar Piastri is back within a DRS interval to Leclerc, as is Sainz on the back of Piastri. So the McLarens and the Ferraris fighting out at the front here. It's a little bit exciting for them. They're really close still in lap 8 here of 78. The rest of the grid spreading out a little bit. Albon's right in the back of Yuki Tsunoda, though. I will say that much further down the grid, as is Bottas on Ricciardo. Sainz is really right on the back of Oscar Piastri right now. So I wonder if he can try and use DRS to make an overtake opportunity here into turn 1. He's got DRS open. He looks to the inside line. He's not going to be able to get close enough to Oscar Piastri. But I will say this much. It's a bit of an interesting one to watch now, because Piastri is going to have to keep defending from Sainz the whole time and have to put his car in a place he might not want it to, just to stop him from overtaking him, which means it's a bit slower, which means he loses that gap to Charles Leclerc. And also, if you go off the racing line, the degradation of the tires is much higher than if you stay on it as well. There's a lot more rubber where you want to be racing, which holds on to those tires' age. So Oscar Piastri having to do some interesting racecraft here to try and stay ahead of Sainz and to make sure that Sainz doesn't get too close to him, whilst also thinking about that first place position with Charles Leclerc. It's going to be a lot of management here for tires and pit stop strategies amongst all these drivers. Oscar Piastri already being thrown into the deep end of it in lap 9 of a whole 78 laps. So he's really got a lot of laps to go here. He's not even, well, he is now over 10% of the race through, but I mean, yeah, it's gonna be a while here for Oscar Piastri rather to manage these tires and manage the strategy here. Carlos Sainz, though, in the meantime, has put in the fastest lap of the day so far, still within DRS range of Oscar Piastri, but not going to be challenging him much for that position just yet. He seems to have dropped off a little bit more. I mean, I think Piastri started to try and use energy a lot to try and maybe build that gap up to more than a second to Carlos Sainz behind him, in which case he should be able to get away from that Ferrari. The gap from Norris to Russell is now 5 seconds. 5 whole seconds from Norris to Russell. Sainz and Piastri's collision, no further investigation. That's all. Stewards were investigating the turn 1 incident, which was between Piastri and Sainz. They were not investigating the following incident, which was between the Haas's and Perez. I'm sure they'll still have a debate about that, but they don't have to do it in the race because all 3 of them are out. They don't have to necessarily do it right now, but they can react to it after the race and make a decision then. Oscar Piastri is now 1 second behind Leclerc, 1.1 seconds. Sainz for 0.6 seconds. Lando Norris 1.5 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. Then there's a gap of 6 seconds now from Russell to Norris, and Verstappen's gap to George Russell is 2 seconds. Hamilton's to Verstappen 1.7. So these gaps are big just behind the top 4. The top 4, Lando Norris now getting much, much closer to Carlos Sainz, 1.2 seconds. So he seems to have sort of made a little bit of an inroad on the Ferrari ahead of him, maybe just trying to see if he can make a bit of a push to try and get into DRS to try and drag him around the track, as Oscar Piastri is doing with Charles Leclerc. as Piastri does now put in the fastest lap. As I said, he did push that lap to try and get a little bit further away from Carlos Sainz. So again, lots of very interesting things being done by drivers here. Lap 11 now of 78. Just been told, Max Verstappen on the radar. Not entirely sure why Russell is going so slowly at the moment, just giving them a chance of a pit stop gap. But yeah, just keep going as you are at the moment. It's basically calling out Mercedes and over the radio saying, why are you going so slowly? Be better. You're going to affect our race soon. But just telling Max Verstappen to continue as he is. But frankly, for Red Bull, no real point to say what George Russell's doing, because if he's proving a problem to your race, just pass him. Make an effort to pass him. But Max Verstappen just managing his tyres as well, and he's matching the pace with George Russell. So at the end of the day, can't really go after George Russell all that much. Well, George Russell on the radio. George Russell's just, I recommend 3 seconds of the thing, and he's been told at this stage, we gain nothing from driving faster, and he says affirmative. So essentially, I think Mercedes have given up on the top four battle. I think they've given up on the concept of trying to fight with the top four. So basically being told, just maintain your pace as it is, you'll get fifth. If you go quicker, you might lose positions. So it is an interesting one. Maybe Mercedes got something else planned here, but I think it basically sounds like they've resigned themselves to the highest as fifth that they can try and fight it for. Piastri is within DRS as Leclerc. Sainz is right in the back of Piastri as well. So those top three are still really, really close together. Norris has now dropped 2 seconds off of Carlos Sainz ahead of him, so he's trying to manage his tyres a little bit better. Now it's all down to tyre degradation between the McLarens and the Ferraris. Who can hold on to these tyres longer without losing too much pace so that when they go into the pits, they don't mess up too much. It's all about the pit stop in this race. When do they go into the pits? It's not going to be for a fair while, but when they go into the pits, that's going to determine what happens for the rest of this race. We have more than 600 of you watching alongside. Thank you so much for joining us here. As we do see movement in the pits here, it seems like Kick Sauber's going to make a change of tyre here immediately. They seem to be getting ready for a pit stop. One of us for Bottas or Zhou. Bottas is on the medium tyre, which means that it would have degraded a little bit quicker than Zhou brand new tyres. But Zhou is right at the back of the grid. Maybe they can try and put him nice and early to try and get ahead of Logan Sargent, because obviously we know how difficult it is to overtake in this track. If he pits a little bit earlier, then he might be able to make up a bit of time so that Logan Sargent is no longer a problem for him. Yeah, so I'm just listening to all these possible strategies that people are running. So it sounds like Russell, Verstappen, and Hamilton, they started on the hard tyre and they're now switched to the medium tyre when we restart this race, which means they don't have to pit. It sounds like they might well try to make this medium tyre last the entire race. And if that is the case, they try and make this tyre last the whole race. They're basically saying the only way we can make a position up is if we hold on to pace enough without degrading the tyres too much, that when the top four have to go into the pits on these tyres, that they can get past them. But to go on mediums the whole race is a hell of a brave call. But we'll see how it plays out. Again, all comes down to pit stop strategy here, tyre management. That's all this race is right now. It's nothing. There's no overtakes really. You're not going to see that happen. But the overtakes will happen basically in the pits or with tyre management. And if there's a safety car maybe as well, you see, because that's a huge thing as well. You stay on tyres for as long as possible until such time as maybe somebody hits the wall, because it's an automatic safety car if that sort of thing happens. Sometimes a red flag, as we saw as well. So if that sort of thing happens, then you'll see the likes of strategies changing immediately. So right now, we basically just follow along. and we see who's going to budge first. Piastri's got a little bit closer to Leclerc now. I don't know if he's going to attempt an on-track overtake. It's a bit of a brave one if he does, as it comes around that final corner, but DRS is now open for him as he goes down that main straight. But you cannot make an overtake in this track, really. It's so difficult. These cars are too big. They're too wide. They're too big. It's damn near impossible to make a genuine overtake in this race. Piastri is really close to the back of Leclerc, though. I will say that much. He's really right in the back of him. Maybe he sees the tunnel section as a potential place as he comes round into that famous hairpin, of course, where they go next to no pace whatsoever. I mean, the pace they go around is really, really slow. But he's trying to get as close as possible to Charles Leclerc going into the tunnel section. So if he manages to nail this, he might be able to try and go at him. He's a little bit late on the throttle compared to Charles Leclerc there, so I don't think he's going to be able to make any sort of genuine move. But if he manages to do something, maybe he can make a genuine overtake. He's much closer to the back of Leclerc now than he was for the opening few laps of this race. Sainz also right in his back too. TC saying, first time I hear about driving slow to maximize results. Thinking outside the box here from the Mercs. Indeed, it is literally that. Alexandros Giannis, or Giannis, I don't know how you say it now, I do apologize, says, press the like button. I do agree. Thank you so much. Another random human says, and question is, can Sainz catch Piastri? Well, again, right now, they're just all following each other. The top three very much sticking with each other. Lando Norris also sticking more or less with them, just under 2 seconds to Sainz. The gap now from Russell to Norris sits at 8.5 seconds. So I just don't understand Merck's plan here, because as it stands, we're only 16 laps in to 78. We're not even 20% of the way through this race. We're not. I mean, so if that's the case, why stay on the mediums for so long? Because essentially all that's going to open up is a pit gap for the top four. They can go to the pits, come out with fresh tires, and go even quicker around the track than you're currently doing on your mediums. So very, very weird one. Very, very weird one from Mercedes, but we'll see how that pans out. I'm just confused as to what the strategy is here on these medium tires. The hard tire, clearly the better tire in terms of pace that they're having to manage. Verstappen, though, seems to be making a little bit of inroads on Russell's time, although, as I say, that has just drops a little bit off it. So I don't know what the strategies are here amongst the 5th, 6th, 7th on those mediums. They came out in the mediums. They're clearly slower than the hards. I don't believe they're trying to take these medium tires to the end of the race. If they do, that's a hell of an ask, and surely opens up a gap for the top four to go into the pits onto their own mediums, which they can handle even better than the ones below them, because there'll be less degradation on them. So every which way you look at this, it's still confusing as to why you wouldn't want to look at pitting. I mean, Piastri is very, very, very close to the back of Charles Leclerc. I mean, it's like not even half a car behind him, basically, through some of these turns. So Piastri will be pushing pressure on Leclerc. But again, all Leclerc has to do is just drive. If he worries about him too much, then he might make a mistake, and maybe that's where Piastri can try and pounce. But as it is, all he has to focus on is driving, because realistically, there's no place you can overtake. So, yeah, it's very odd. The gap now from George Russell to Lando Norris, or rather from Lando Norris to George Russell, Russell behind Norris, is 9 seconds. Norris is now 0.66 behind Sainz. He's made a push. Sainz just basically giving warning to Charles Leclerc, saying Charles is managing tires a little bit at the moment. The previous lap, Piastri got really close to him. I think Piastri might make a lunge for him at this moment. So basically just trying to say to his engineers, warn Leclerc, because he thinks Piastri might make a lunge for Leclerc's position. And I think Sainz also needs to worry out a little bit, because Norris is able to catch up to Sainz in no time at all at the moment. Because Norris chills at about 2 seconds behind him, 2 seconds, and then he can jump straight up. He suddenly jumped to half a second behind Sainz before then deciding to drop off a bit. So I think the McLarens actually probably have a little bit more pace than these Ferraris in terms of race pace. But it's, can the Ferraris manage to defend well enough so that that doesn't make a difference? essentially. So the Ferraris are supposedly quick enough. That's what they're hoping. They're quick enough to stop that sort of thing from happening. But Sainz just watching Piastri ahead of him get much, much closer to his teammate than he saw previously, and maybe seeing that Piastri might actually make a lunge on Leclerc at some point. As I say, right now, all that Charles Leclerc has to do though is just drive as he is. Just drive as he is. He shouldn't really be in too much danger, but just keep a wary eye, or rather, just rely maybe on his engineer to let him know more about Piastri. What he shouldn't do is look in his rearview mirror the whole time. Actually, he should just keep going as he is. Let his engineer know of anything that might happen, because quite apart from anything else, it's so difficult to overtake. Piastri has to pull a miracle out of the bag to try and overtake Charles Leclerc at any point in this race, and in which case Charles Leclerc can react if he suddenly sees Piastri trying to make a lunge. He can react. He makes a defensive move, and that just pretty much immediately nullifies any sort of attempt from Oscar Piastri here as he's coming even closer around the final thing. I think Oscar Piastri might make a little bit of a lunge here. He was really starting to take different angles going into the tunnel section, so maybe he's trying to follow him even closer. But Sainz also shaping for the move for an overtake, just in case Piastri does try it, so that Sainz can just prove to be a problem, basically, for Piastri, so that Piastri can't necessarily focus on taking Charles Leclerc. It's really, really good team management by Sainz, just basically helping himself as well as his teammate out by just following Piastri's lines and getting even closer to Piastri as Piastri is closer to his own teammate, that being Charles Leclerc for Sainz. So it's an odd one. And I think there's one small thing I would change to the circuit, and I know they will never put it in because it'll then add an element of danger, which we don't want inside the Monaco Grand Prix. But this race would be completely changed if the tunnel section had a DRS zone. If that was a DRS zone, I know it's not that long, but if the tunnel section had DRS, I do believe that it would make this race really interesting, because it would mean Piastri could follow Leclerc really, really closely before that out of the tunnel section, which could provide some really, really interesting racing. If you had a DRS zone in that tunnel, it would be awesome. It would mean that this battle right now would mean something. It wouldn't just be, frightening. It would mean something. You could actually follow somebody out of the tunnel, maybe make a lunge on the inside or on the outside. So, yeah, if they just added that, maybe it would make something interesting. Of course, everybody still looks forward to 2026, because 2026 is, of course, when we know the cars will start to get smaller again. They're going to have a little bit smaller cars, which means that we should have better racing, especially around circuits like Monaco, street circuits in general as well. But right now, of course, we've still got really, really big cars, the biggest cars we've ever had in Formula One. Alex Albon is really on the back of Yuki Tsunoda as well. So maybe he can make an overtake. It's a very, very rare overtake on track in Monaco. Most overtakes happen during the pits, but let's see if we can have a few overtakes happen out on track today as we enter lap 21 of 78. TC saying, my old Mercedes diesel is faster than the W15, lol. Yeah, not the quickest Mercedes they've ever made in Formula One, I will say that much. Rafael Andrea is asking, I feel like Russell is holding everybody back. Well, at the same time, Verstappen is not within DRS range of Russell, so not necessarily. But I will say this, Russell is certainly starting to create quite a bit of a gap from Norris to himself. 11.3 seconds is that gap now. The only good Mercedes on track is the safety car, says Bob. Again, also quite an amusing take on this race so far. Leonardo Longhi saying Bottas already back up with the group post pit stop is crazy quick. Yeah, did he actually go into the pits? I didn't see a pit, but I think he did actually. It makes a good point. And he's already on the back of Zhou, so clearly trying to just use his tyres up quite quickly. You know what you can do at the bottom there is you can steal away the fastest lap from anybody ahead of you. You don't get a point if you don't get in the top 10 for that fastest lap, but you do stop anybody else getting that point as well. So if you know you're not going to finish the top 10, you may as well just have some sort of say in the top 10 in terms of where that point goes or doesn't go. Interesting thing, we're talking about Charles Leclerc as well, in terms of his history here. He's never even been on the podium in his home race. Never been on the podium in Monaco, and let alone won it. But right now, he's currently in the driver's seat. He's picked up a little bit of pace. Oscar Piastri is now out of the DRS zone to him. He can gain that quite quickly, but Sainz has also dropped 1.8 seconds behind Piastri, so dropped quite significantly off of the back of him, and Norris is also now trying to make a move to get back within DRS of Sainz. So again, it's these weird little moments where we see the gaps change significantly within the top four before it goes back to more or less what it was. And everybody's also wondering, at what point does Max Verstappen decide to put the pedal to the metal and start making some moves and some decisions? Because he has been chilling in sixth behind George Russell. George Russell's gap now to Norris is 12.2 seconds. Verstappen's 2.3 seconds behind George Russell. The amount of time you lose to a pit stop here is a lot longer than the average. It's about 28 seconds. So, if that gap continues to grow as it is, there should be a pit stop opportunity for the top four that they won't be held up by the likes of George Russell. So if that happens, you might as well, if you land or not, go into the pits, even if the guys are ahead of them. I think they all have to change the entire compounds, the top four, so they have to go to the pits at some point. I think they all started on the hards in any case. And if that is the case, then they won't be able to go to the end of the race in this entire compound. They're going to have to come into the pits at some point to change for the mediums. But they can do that as late as possible. And if they've got that gap, then it's not going to affect them. And then whoever reacts first might well be the winner of this race, even if it's Lando Norris, because you can make up 3 seconds as a result of tire degradation around this track in pretty much a lap or 2 laps. So it's all down to when the top four pit, basically. That is our race, is pit stops. You can't afford to have a slow pit stop. A slow pit stop means position loss and might even mean losing this race. True Blood let me know the top store did start on medium, so they can go on the hard tire for the rest of the race. So yeah, they can go on the hard tire for the rest of this race. They don't have to come into the pits, but given the fact that they're going so much quicker than George Russell and Max Verstappen, who are on the mediums, I'm going to assume the plan is to go hell for leather on these hards until such time as they don't work, and then come into the pits. Because realistically, the pace they're setting says pit stop. So I'm 90% certain they'll come back into the pits at some point. It's just what tire they come out on and when they go into the pits and how good is that pit stop call and that strategy. So I'm fairly certain they will go into the pits. But yeah, it's all unknown at this point. As we do cross 800 viewers, thank you guys so much for joining us here. Be sure to like the video as you guys join, and let me know in the comments what you guys think is going to happen. I'm going through the comments quickly. Fluffy Owl saying Max isn't having a good time. Leonardo saying if they get ahead of George and get a free pit stop, first to pit goes first. Bob saying Russell, move your fat ass, or basically car. Raphael saying all Maxes struggle because Russell's holding everybody back. Yeah, I don't know what the strategy is with Red Bull as well. They don't seem to be too concerned about Russell's pace as much as they were going after it a little bit earlier, but they don't seem to be too concerned. The gap now from Russell to Norris is 13.1 seconds. TC saying Russell's going to be lapped. I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, so that's what the commentators are saying. Exactly what I've said is from 5th, 7th, Russell, Verstappen, and Hamilton, they've waved goodbye to top 4 on these medium tires, because if you go onto the hard tire now, you come out of the pits there and thereabouts with Joe Granu, Valtteri Bottas. That's the sort of gap they need, and that's how much time they're going to lose. And if they do that, Valtteri Bottas is not going to come out of the pits again. He's not going into the pits again. He's pitted. So he's going to stay on these tires for as long as possible, which means that you're going to be behind Valtteri Bottas all the way down at 16, knowing that he's not even going to have a pit. So they've conceded the top 4, and I'm just going to try and make these medium tires last the rest of the race. It's bizarre. Really is bizarre. Don't quite know why. As Old Man Roo says, though, we are moving towards 6,000 subscribers. Guys, please do yourself a favor, do us all a favor, and do something really, really nice. And get us to 6,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button. And whilst you're there, you see a little bell icon. Be sure to hit that as well, so that you guys are notified when we go live for all future motorsports events as well. We do all the live streaming for all Formula One sessions, as well as Moto GP. And also other motorsports races in general, some WEC championships and otherwise. So be sure to go and consider subscribing, guys. Really, really do appreciate it. As we said, we are heading towards that 6,000 subscriber marker. And also like this video as we are there. Be sure to check out our channel sponsor, BITDEFENDER, in the description. And also how you can watch Formula One for free in the description as well, completely legally. Alonso being told we are on plan B+2. Which means obviously a number of laps. So one imagines they're going to be thinking about a pit stop at some point for Fernando Alonso. An interesting one. So I wonder if Alonso can maybe try and look at points, because he knows that Gasly and Stroll will have to pit at some point. Which means he might be able to get points. So if he pits early enough and manages to hold onto his tires long enough and gets enough time before that pit stop comes back in, he might be able to make himself up a few positions. So I wonder if Fernando Alonso will be coming to the pits not so long from now, as we're heading towards the halfway stage in this race. Not quite, we've still got a few laps to go, but we are starting to look in that direction. So yeah, the top four still very much there and thereabouts with each other. Now also watching the serious train that has formed behind Fernando Alonso, who's on these mediums, of course. He's on the mediums. Those behind him are all on the hards. They're really, really close to the back of Fernando Alonso. I wonder if we will see an attempted overtake from Daniel Ricciardo on Fernando Alonso. He's really right in the back of him. And it's a hell of a DRS train that's formed behind him, in which case maybe somebody makes a lunge. And the scary thing about Monaco is if somebody does make a lunge on Fernando Alonso, the likelihood of contact, very, very high. If that happens, safety cars, and then all these strategies that we've been talking about this entire time, thrown out the window, we move on to something new. So let's see how they do follow Fernando Alonso. Obviously, a very, very experienced racer, knows where to find time and where to avoid that sort of thing from happening. And he seems to have found in that hairpin there. Built up a little bit of a gap before going into that tunnel section to Daniel Ricciardo behind him, which means Daniel Ricciardo is not close enough to make an attempted overtake on him out of this tunnel section. Fernando Alonso not been having the greatest season for himself in this Aston Martin car. The Aston Martin itself not been having the greatest. It's not been having the greatest season either. So I'm not really surprised that he's been finishing in the low top 10s, sometimes outside the top 10 in these last 5 races of his. So he's once again fighting in that same sort of point, 12th, 11th, 10th, 9th. So it's disappointing to see such a talented driver essentially waste away the end of his career in a car that's not quite as quick as it should be. Though Aston Martin reckon they'll have a very quick car for next season, I wonder if they're going to be able to maybe convince Adrian Newey to come across into the Aston Martin car, into the Aston Martin team, in which case Fernando Alonso will be very chuffed about that. But right now, Fernando Alonso fighting it out in 12th position. He's at the front of those 4, but everybody else quite close to the back of him. George Russell's gap to Lando Norris currently sits at 13.6 seconds, 0.7 seconds now. So the gap's really started to head towards that 20-second marker, in which case people now start thinking about pit stops. As Pureblood says, the map said that they started on the medium tires, so they did not actually just pit, that being the top 4, unless the map was lying and they actually did start on the hards. I cannot actually, unfortunately, remember. But if they did start on the mediums, they don't have to pit the top 4. Again, given the way they are racing, I imagine they will be pitting around the 55-lap marker or the 50-lap marker to try and finish the race on mediums. No, it's on the radio. Huh. Noah's been told on the radio something very interesting. He says he's got a little bit of abrasion on the front left tire, and he says, understood, Max, understood, Lando, rather. It's the same abrasion we started seeing on the Ferraris 10 laps ago. So McLaren either playing mind games or genuinely at a little bit of an advantage to these Ferraris, saying that the abrasion on their tires is far less than the Ferraris, in which case they can keep going on these hard tires longer than the Ferraris, which means they might even be able to make these tires last enough for soft tires near the end of the race to try and win it. So McLarens are backing themselves, essentially. That's what that sounds like. We're now on lap 30 of 78. Again, all these sort of strategies, all these little things to think about are going to start panning out eventually. When, I don't quite know. It doesn't seem like anybody's opting for pit stop strategies yet, so we're just still currently following everybody as they go around. Those bottom four trying to chase up to Alonso and 12th consistently here, but it's so difficult to overtake in this track. Again, it's my big complaint about this track is that it's just not wide enough in certain sectors. I still maintain, I know it's such a famous chicane, just out of the tunnel section, that immediate left-hander after the tunnel should be removed. Make it straight. If you kept going straight there, you can make that a DRS zone. If that was a DRS zone, I know the reason they don't make it a DRS zone is because then it's dangerous going into that following turn. But sorry, just listening to a radio message there. If they did have that as a DRS zone, it would make this race so much more exciting and a completely different dynamic, which everybody would be so keen for. But they kind of have to have it there as it's Formula One rules. But at the same time, they make so many exceptions for this track because it doesn't meet a lot of the criteria that modern day tracks need to meet. And they still race it because it's just so famous, of course. You can't not have a race in Monaco. But I will say this much is that realistically, make a second DRS zone in this track, this race completely changes. But anyway, right now, that's not the case. So we're just going to have to follow these current strategies and everything that's happening right now to understand who might or might not finish in first, second, third, or fourth between these McLarens and the Ferraris, because that's essentially the battle right now. It's George Russell's gap to Lando Norris is 14 seconds. I'm still very confused by Verstappen's strategy here. I assume he's on the same sort of strategy as Mercedes as well, trying to make these medium tires last. Ooh, just Lando Norris very, very slightly touching the barrier with his back left tire as he comes around turn one. Just a tiny, tiny graze. Just a tiny graze. Oof, maybe not even. No, it's 1 centimeter to the wall. That's how close he got to the wall there. And again, one instant like that can completely change this race and the dynamics of everything that's happening out on track. But something like that would change this race completely. You know, safety car, red flag, something like that. Everybody's strategies change. So again, the McLarens and the Ferraris, it's an interesting little dynamic happening here. The McLarens reckon that their tire degradation is far less than the Ferraris, and that the Ferraris are starting to show graining on the tires, whereas the McLarens are not. So the McLarens holding onto the tires a little bit better, which means they can really push as soon as the Ferraris go into the pits, or maybe go into the pits earlier, later, yeah, definitely later, and push for a little bit longer to try and get that gap so that the Ferraris don't get ahead of them. So if that does happen, it's an interesting one. Apparently, we must fasten our seatbelts. We might see Stroll and Alonso fight it out for 11th. I somehow doubt it. But essentially, what I think they're saying is start getting an interesting thing here, because we reckon that we might start to see strategies play out. We're hitting around the halfway mark in this race in about 5 laps time, 6 laps time. And the moment we hit there, you might start to see some strategies play out. We have now crossed 1,000 viewers. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Please be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like the video. It really is fantastic to have so many of you guys watching with us here. And again, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button and the notifications icon as well. So what do we think is going to happen here right at the end of this race? Do we reckon the McLarens will be able to take the Ferraris? Do we reckon the Ferraris will be able to hold on to first and third? Do we reckon that Verstappen, Russell, and Hamilton have got some sort of other strategy that we have no cooking clue about, that maybe they can try and have some sort of say in the top four? Or do we reckon that's completely gone for them? What is happening across the grid? What do we think is going to happen? Give me your thoughts in the comment section. I'm very keen to see what everybody thinks might or will happen, in fact, during the rest of this race. Science is radio. Science just giving some opinions and worries about what might happen with Lando Norris and himself for that matter third. He's saying there's a risk that if the gap moves to 20 seconds between Russell and Norris, which is starting to head towards 13.3 seconds right now, that there's a danger that Lando Norris will come in near the end of the race for soft tires and will then be able to get past him. So he's just worried about that, and the engineer's just saying, yeah, we are on it. He says everybody is, and then Science just says back to him, says, yeah, you know, everybody's starting to show graining now, so we might start to see these sort of strategies play out a little bit. So if that is the case, then they're going to have to start worrying about things. Yeah, that gap from Russell to Norris is getting bigger. I wonder if Max Verstappen will try to push a little bit more. And if Max Verstappen does push a little bit more to George Russell, will he try and make an overtake somehow, push him? And if he does push him and manage to make an overtake, then it becomes interesting, because then Max Verstappen can try and have a say with the top four, because if he can hold on to that gap to less than 20 seconds whilst maintaining tire degradation to a minimum, he might be able to somehow get this race finished on those medium tires somehow, and from nowhere win this race. But I very much doubt it. It's going to be so difficult, and he still has to get past George Russell, who's trying to also hold on to his tires and is losing time to Norris, you know, slowly but surely as the race continues to go on. But the grading showing on the, hang on. Oscar Piastri just worried a little bit about Science, talking about Science's things. His engineer is basically saying, don't worry, in various text and plans, basically more or less saying, Science has damaged his medium tire. He doesn't necessarily have another medium tire. His worry is Lando Norris. His worry is not you. So you carry on as you are. We'll let you know what's going to happen. Don't worry about Science. I think it's more you need to worry about the first position race, because Piastri just said he's just a little bit confused about Ferrari's strategy. And I think everybody's a little bit confused about what is happening on track, because nobody really knows. It's all happening. It's an interesting one. Exoteric says, I foresee shenanigans from the last 10 laps and everything will change. Indeed. Then we'll see everybody out in the soft tire. We'll see some really hard racing, and we'll see if people get into the pits enough, or otherwise it's going to be certainly a very interesting thing if that should happen. Antonio saying Ferrari need to pit Science as soon as the pit window opens in front of Russell to put pressure on Piastri to come in. Well, again, the pit window is not opened yet, because Russell's gap is now 15 seconds. It's started to push a little bit more, to be fair. 15 seconds is now that gap to Norris. If it's just over 20, we now start thinking about pitting. At the moment, not really. But if that should happen, then pit stops will become a thing. A lot of strategies banking on a safety car or two, says Old Man Vu. Albon and Tsunoda fighting for their lives. Not really. Albon's really on the back of Tsunoda. Don't get me wrong. It's really close racing between the two of them. But again, this track is just so difficult to overtake that it's just very unlikely we're going to see anything like that sort of happen. Tsunoda is 21 seconds off the back of Hamilton, though. I will say that much. 21 seconds off the back of Hamilton. That's a huge gap. So that is a free pit for the top 7. In other words, if they want to be outside the top, if they want to be within the top 7 still. So if you pit now, you'll still come out ahead of Tsunoda, a gap 21 seconds. So that is essentially a free stop. But Russell is 16.2 seconds now. So within about 10 laps, I reckon that pit window will be able to open. and Ferrari or McLaren can make a decision as to whether or not to go into the pits. So one wonders now, do Mercedes, Verstappen, and Hamilton make a pit stop now? Because if they will make a pit stop now, just before that 20-minute marker, 20-second marker, they've made these mediums last as long as possible to get into the hards, to basically push the hards for the rest of the race. Whereas not really a pit stop opening for the top 4 to risk it, where they can push a lot harder because they can come into the pits before Tsunoda and still come out within the top 7. So within more or less where they are. And then it risks the top 4 wasting their tires, and they can make all that time back up if the top 4 decide to stay on those hard tires, or if they do come into the pits, then they can overtake them. So maybe that is the chance that they could try and do, is Russell, Verstappen, and Hamilton basically come into the pits just before the pit window opens up. So maybe that is the strategy that they're trying to do. They're basically going to try and see, can we come into the pits just before the pit window opens for the top 4, where they might come into the pits, come into those hard tires, fresh hard tires for the rest of this race, and really motor it out. And if they can control that gap to under 20 seconds, the top 4 are at risk of losing that position to them. So right now, that gap is 17 seconds. So I think this is going to be the point where I think the race is going to be determined by what happens amongst the top 7. Is who makes the move first? What do we do? I think realistically, you've got to pull the trigger as Mercedes and Red Bull Garage and put them into the pits just before that section, or just before that gap opens at 20 seconds, to try and come out ahead of everybody. Because they can try and make up that time enough whilst not degrading their tires too much either. So that's the only way they can try and do it, is by coming into the pits early and then letting the top 4 make their minds up as to whether they come into the pits or not and hold on to that gap. But they're going to have to come out on what is essentially medium tires, which means that they'll degrade quicker and they'll lose the same amount of time that Russell's been losing. So yeah, that's the only way 5th, 6th, and 7th can try and challenge near the top 4. But even then, it's still so unlikely that anything like that sort of happens. But that's the way they can try and have some sort of say on this race. So we all watch Russell's gap with eager eyes to see when it gets close to that 20-second marker, if any of those 5th, 6th, and 7th drivers dive into the pits, or if the top 4 do dive into the pits. That's essentially the thing that we're watching for here. Leclerc being told, if you can, we need to slow down a bit. Yeah, I mean, what's the scope of that? So he's been told, we are preventing McLaren to have a pit stop window because we have no rush in this happening. So Ferrari, and then he's been told, I didn't get it, but that makes me push in the slow speed, which I don't like. Basically, Leclerc's not happy with what he's been told to do, but being told to hold McLaren up so that Russell's gap to them does not get bigger than 20 seconds, so that it opens up an opportunity for Norris to go on to other tires to make up for the rest of the race. So Ferrari now having to defend from the McLarens. The McLarens hoping that they build this gap to more than 20 seconds. Russell hoping that he doesn't get out of 20 seconds so that he can come into the pits just a little bit earlier to then try and make up that time as quickly as possible. It's a really, really interesting thing right now is, will 5th, 6th, and 7th go into the pits on those medium tires, which are degrading so quickly in lap 40 now of 78? It's all too much maths, and frankly, just race. It's this whole tire management and tire degradation and all these different factors. We've lost out on that racing of this track in terms of just pedal to the metal, go, and we'll see what happens. Piastri's radio. Piastri just saying he really doesn't seem to see Leclerc slowing down. So he doesn't know what they're worried about in the background there in terms of trying to slow down. So Piastri just being as cool as usual and just basically giving us his mindful opinion on the fact that he's quite happy to do what he's doing. Fluffy asking, where are you from? By the way, your accent sounds South African. Funny that. You are correct. I am South African. I am from Johannesburg, That is where we stream from. That is where the channel from. That is where most of our members and people are from on the channel. And speaking of members, you can also consider becoming a member of the channel, just giving that little extra support, giving that much more of a like, pretty much, to our videos by becoming a member of the channel. And we really would appreciate it if you do that. You get a little special perks as being a member of the channel, and we really do appreciate you. And we'll always read out your comment, pretty much, more or less. Not always necessarily, but we'll make as much effort as possible to read out your comment if we see it in the comment section there. And also you get highlighted so that we can see that you're a little bit more important than those around. But yes, nonetheless, just you guys watching is really, really, really grateful for that. And again, consider subscribing and liking the video as well. Whilst you guys join us, we've got more than 1,300 of you watching this race. Reina Sanchez saying this race has had some crazy close drivers. Well, the gap's are really, really close, which is great to see. So good following from everybody, but nobody can get much quicker, as we're now starting to see blue flags take place here as the kick salvos are having to get out of the way of the front four as now lapping starts. The leaders luckily did not get held up at all by those overtakes, but it does mean that these cars will start to make their way past the bottom of the grid slowly but surely as they make their way past Bottas, and they're now starting to catch the rest of these people, not getting too held up, I hope, by all the blue flags here as they're coming into the hairpin section where there's next to no opportunity to get past. Oscar Piastri doesn't want to lose too much time here. All the blue flags are going to be waved to all these guys. I'm watching a replay of Carlos Sainz here. Does he make contact with the wall? Oh my word, he does, just slightly touching the wall there with his tire. The blue flags have been shown for all these drivers behind, and everybody's managed to get in there. Piastri lost a couple of milliseconds to Leclerc ahead of him, but he'll catch that up in no time. So luckily not lost too much time, have the top four compared to the bottom 5, 6, 7 drivers that are now passed. They've got past both Aston Martins as well. So they're really motoring past. They're just motored past Daniel Ricciardo. Alonso's ahead of them now. Yeah, overtakes already. In 42 laps, we've had overlaps happening from the top 4. Alonso doing well just to get out of the way of those drivers, not to impede their race too much. Oh my word. Alonso almost gave opportunity to Daniel Ricciardo there. That's the one thing that can cause. Is Alonso is putting blue flags on, and Daniel Ricciardo nearly decided to make a move on Fernando Alonso. He almost tried to act as if he was one of the fast cars that he was getting blue flags for Fernando Alonso. So Daniel Ricciardo almost very opportunistic, right on the back of Fernando Alonso in the tunnel section. He might be able to make an overtake attempt. This might be one of the rare attempts of an overtake out of the tunnel here from Daniel Ricciardo. Will he be able to do something? No, he's a little bit too far, but almost very opportunistic from Daniel Ricciardo to try and get past Fernando Alonso. As we now see a pit stop, here we go. Lance Stroll is in the pits. Lance Stroll, 2.3 seconds in the pits. He's gone on to the hard tires. And he comes out now just amongst all of those top 4. He should come out still ahead of his teammate Fernando Alonso. He does indeed. So if Lance Stroll gets a free pit stop there, holding on to his position, and he's on to brand new hard tires, which he can try and use to get into the points compared to Pierre Gasly ahead of him, who's only now 20 seconds behind him, but hopefully tries to make up enough time so that Gasly loses that position if he comes with the pits. So Lance Stroll making an early move to get into the pits to try and make sure he holds on to points for this race. Lando Norris's radio. He's asking how his front left is looking compared to them, and he's saying of the 4 cars in the front runners, his tire degradation is looking the best in terms of holding on to his tires and making his tires last as long as possible. So Lando Norris is essentially being told he's managing his tires the best, so just keep going as he is. Again, how that's going to affect the race too much, I don't know, because if the moment somebody goes into the pits, everybody else is going to go into the pits pretty much. I don't think they're going to try and risk going out for too much longer. So it's an interesting one. It's all about how quick the pit stop is. So I hope the pit stop practices have been happening and they can really motor, as that gap from Russell to Norris, interestingly, has now come down to 13.8 seconds, which means Leclerc has slowed down ever so slightly. Of course, that was mainly due to the blue flags. The blue flags that happened there, George Russell and the likes will eventually catch up to you, but it's how long it's going to take them to catch up to it. But that's where the front four lost that time, because they were getting so close to that free pit window spot, but they lost time in the blue flag sections when they're having to get past all those cars. So the gap now is down to 13.7 seconds again from George Russell to Lando Norris. Science just asking to be keeping posted about Lando Norris's potential to have a pit window on him. Right now, Lando Norris will come out behind Max Verstappen. So essentially, he's not going to have any pit stop yet, but just be wary that, you know, maybe in the future that sort of pit stop could be happening. Great to see so many of you guys joining us on the channel for this race. We're in lap 46 of 78. Charles Leclerc leads his home Grand Prix here in Monaco. Piastri's in second, just 1.9 seconds behind him. Sainz just 2.3 seconds behind Piastri. Lando Norris 1.2 seconds behind Sainz. And our top four who are very, very close together. And then there's quite a big gap of 14.2 seconds now to George Russell, who's in fifth. Lando Norris, if he manages to get that gap to 20 seconds, can then try to have a free pit stop to then try and catch up to Sainz on fresher tires, which means Sainz has to react. And if he does react, might come out behind Lando Norris. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch as well. Max Verstappen, though, our drivers' champions, in sixth position, 2 seconds behind George Russell, who's in fifth. Hamilton is in seventh, 3.7 seconds behind Verstappen. Then Tsunoda, 35.2 seconds behind Hamilton. So, yes, just trying to see where action might happen on the track. So the one potential thing that might happen as a result of Stroll's pit stop that we saw a little bit earlier is that Stroll can try and make up that time he lost to Gasly as a result of the pit stop. He's now 16.1 seconds behind. He was 20. So you can make that gap up to about, you know, if you can get close to Gasly right near the end of the race, because he can be unleashed now as Lance Stroll. He's unleashed in this hard tire. He can motor as quickly as possible. And he can maybe launch an attack on Gasly for 10th position right near the end of this race. But again, you have to try and get past him, which is going to be so difficult. But he can at least make up as much time as possible each lap. He can push for as long as he wants to try and see if he can get into the points. Now, so many people in attendance for this weekend here in Monaco, which is great to see. But yes, unfortunately, they haven't been able to see too many overtakes. Tire strategies all working pretty much for everybody. Lots to think about across the grid, but right now, no action. And if Russell holds on to that gap of 14.5 seconds, it means the top four will not pit and will pretty much finish the race with this top four. But if that gap goes up to 20 seconds, Lando Norris might make an attempt to pit stop and come out into the soft tire. Leclerc, I think, almost playing fun games there at the front there, maybe just showing how calm he is. He's actually having a laugh with his engineer. He's saying, we've got, just for your information, we've got, do you want me to say basically how many laps they've got left in the tires? And the engineer said, do not say it. Do not say it. He says, did you say it? He says, yes, do not say how much you've got left. We already know. We already know. So I think just playing a little bit of mind games there with the rest of the grid, just saying, how much time they're going to wait until they go into the pits here. Nice on the radio. Nice on the radio. Lando had been told if a safety car had to happen right now, you would essentially have a free pit stop. And if you had a free pit stop, you would come out on the medium tires. Sainz would have to come in for the soft tires. So just have a think about that. Lando Norris just basically saying immediately, I'd be very happy to have a free stop and come out on the medium tire. So basically saying if a safety car had to happen right now, he's coming into the pits, no doubt about it. And for the first time in ages, well, actually not the first time, because you usually don't talk about Max Verstappen anyway, because he's at the front of the grid, but we're not talking about Max Verstappen today, because in sixth, they're not really pushing anything down there. So Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, we've not really seen at all this whole race. Max Verstappen still chilling within 2 seconds of George Russell, who's now 16 seconds behind Lando Norris. That gap starting to build up again, as we saw earlier. And if that gap gets up to 20 seconds, we might see Lando Norris react, get into the pits for the medium/soft tire to really push for the rest of the race. And if that happens, we could see something maybe interesting for third place and even further ahead. But again, you still got to get past everybody in this track, and it's so difficult to overtake. And one has to wonder what happens. Stroll says, I have a puncture. Stroll says he's got a puncture. Stroll is dropping very quickly. Stroll has got a puncture. This could cause a safety car because that tire's barely on the car. He manages to nurse the car into the pits, but the tire does go off the rim as he gets into the pit lane. His points are gone. His potential points are gone. Stroll's back into the pits here. He's going to get back onto the soft tire now. But unfortunately for him, he's got a puncture. And, he couldn't get... Yeah, and there's a tire in the pit lane. It's in the entry to the pit lane. I wonder when they'll make a move forward. There is a bit of a gap where they can afford to do so they won't cause any sort of safety car. They might just say a yellow flag, but nothing's going to happen. But almost, just as Lando Norris gets in the radio and says, if a safety car had to happen, almost about a safety car there. If that puncture resulted in Lance Stroll not being able to complete that lap and get back into the pits. Luckily for him, he did get back into the pits. The tire came off as he entered the pits, but because it's off the track, they won't have a safety car. They'll be able to recover that tire, and nothing comes of it. But that was almost something that could have caused some very interesting things near the top of this grid. Now, if we talk about ludicrous times, Tsunoda's gap to Lewis Hamilton from 8th to 7th, 45.5 seconds. I repeat, 45.45 or 5 now seconds. That is almost a whole. Basically, he's not far away from all that. From 7th to 8th. It's really quite a hell of a gap there. And the other interesting thing to note here is Norris to Russell. He's making up close to a second a lap, which means in about 5, 6, 7 laps time, we could see Lando Norris have a free pit stop onto soft tires for the remainder of this race, which can catch up to the top 3 very quickly, and then maybe potentially result in a chase for 3rd or 2nd. So what happened to Lance Stroll? How did he get that? He clipped the tire on the wall as he comes out of the tunnel, and as a result of that, his tire does get a huge puncture and comes off eventually in the pit lane. So Charles Leclerc has always dreamt of winning his home Grand Prix here in Monaco. Never even made the podium. Oh, hang on. Shut up. I don't care. We've got pit stops happening. Which means that we could see pit stops from McLaren and the likes. Lando Norris might well come into the pits as well. Hamilton's coming into the pits, as is Max Verstappen, and potentially George Russell as well. Lewis Hamilton comes out of the pits now, makes an immediate stop. 2.5 seconds. It's very important that they keep these times down. Max Verstappen now into the pits as well. Or did they just fake it? I think they faked it. Max Verstappen, I think, faked the pit stop, forced Mercedes into the pit stop, and I think they just duped them a little bit. So we have our first pit stop in the top 7. Hamilton is the first one to react into the pits. He's going to come out. He's already in 7th, so it doesn't make a difference to him in terms of his position. But what it does mean is potentially we could see Max Verstappen and George Russell react. Maybe he comes out in the hard tire. He can go drive as quickly as he wants. We're now on board with Lando Norris, who's right on the back of Carlos Sainz as well. Nice and close to him. See if he maybe tries to challenge him a little bit more into the front there. He's not going to come to the pits, obviously. But yeah, it does mean Hamilton can drive as quickly as he wants around the rest of the track for the rest of this. Now it seems they are going to react, Red Bull. They're going to put Max Verstappen into the hard tire, so he's going to come into the pits now. Does Russell react? And if Russell reacts, then you could have the top 4 reacting as well. So finally, a little bit of action to talk about, a little bit of strategy to think about. Max Verstappen enters the pits now. Will he come out ahead? Yellow flag in Sector 2. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2. I wonder what's happened there. Green flag, it's sector clear, so nothing too much. But will Max Verstappen come out ahead of Hamilton, or did Hamilton have a good enough outlap to come out ahead of his arch rival, Max Verstappen? So Max Verstappen now comes towards that exit. He sees the an Aston Martin leave, and Hamilton's not even in his rearview mirror yet as he gets up to speed, and Hamilton was not able to get anywhere near Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen reacting quick enough, comes out in a hard tire with 2 seconds to spare to Hamilton in the background. Now, will Russell react? His gap is 18.4 seconds to Norris and 18.6 seconds to Verstappen. So if he goes into the pits right now, he will fight with Verstappen as he comes out the pits, but he has to have a brilliant pit stop, can't afford to make any mistake. So will he react? And again, if that reacts, will Lando Norris come into the pits? Surely one imagines he will. Watching Valtteri Bottas, he actually made an overtake. Brilliant. He did make an overtake. He went to the inside of Valtteri Bottas, made to the inside of Logan Sargent and managed to take him for 13th position. And that's the first genuine overtake of this race in terms of later on after the start. So great for make an overtake, and we appreciate him for that. Hamilton on the radio. I'm asking, why didn't you tell me outlap was critical? If I'm frank, Lewis Hamilton, that was fairly obvious given the fact that Verstappen was ahead of him. That was really, really obvious from Lewis Hamilton. As the commentators say, that's just pathetic, quite frankly, of Lewis Hamilton. That is crying, quite frankly, about your position. That is terrible. You come into the pits, you know you're the first one to the pits. You know Max Verstappen is going to react at some point. Your first couple of laps, at least, are critical. You need to motor as quickly as possible on those brand new tires to catch up, to close that gap down, to make it a battle as it comes out. Going Harry casual outside the pits as soon as you go into it is just beyond stupid. And for somebody who's a 7-time world champion to not realize that is bizarre. It is really, really bizarre. Don't know why he'd ask that. I think that's poor from Hamilton. He should know that. He should know that it's a critical lap. But nonetheless, we're in lap 55 of 78. Hamilton in 7th, Max Verstappen in 6th after having the pit stops right now. Does George Russell react, or does he think that he will not get caught by Max Verstappen before the end of this race and can make this tire last? If that is the case, George Russell could stay in 5th position, potentially at least stay on this tire. Then the top 4 might not react, but Russell's gap to Norris is dropping quite significantly. That sort of thing happens. Does Russell decide to come into the pits? I think Verstappen's made up enough time that if Russell comes into the pits, then Verstappen will be ahead of Russell if Russell pits now. So Russell cannot afford to pit now. Max Verstappen's really motoring now. He's got the fastest lap behind his name. He's already 12.3 seconds behind Russell. So all I'm saying is that at the speed that Verstappen's motoring at, he's going to catch Russell before the end of this race quite easily on fresh hard tires compared to Russell's very old mediums, which means it should be an easy overtake for Verstappen, even at this circuit, which means Mercedes made a completely huge error there in not pitting George Russell immediately. Oh my word! We're really, really close to Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz. Lando Norris almost colliding with the back of Carlos Sainz. We're so close. My word, that was really, really close between Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, and they were almost fighting there out of nowhere. Lando Norris was really close to the back of Carlos Sainz. So Sainz deliberately went a little bit slower there to try and force Norris behind that gap window, but not able to really make an effect because Lando Norris just went right up to the back of him. And it was so close. And now the gap from George Russell to Lando Norris is 19.5 seconds, which means technically the pit stop, the free pit stop gap is open. Lando Norris can afford to pit and come out ahead of George Russell, in which case he can try and catch up to Carlos Sainz before the end of this race. He needs to do it ASAP though. Lap 56 of 78. He's not got too much time to make up the time, but look at how quickly Max Verstappen is catching George Russell ahead of him. If that is any indication as to how much time can be made up, then maybe Lando Norris makes that decision, because Max Verstappen, who was 23 seconds behind Russell when he went in, just 4 laps later, it's 9.5 seconds. He's making up more than 2 seconds a lap, which is ridiculous sort of speeds. So will Lando Norris come into the pits now? He's really right on the back of Carlos Sainz. He's not going to go into the pits just yet, but he's so close to the back of Carlos Sainz. Maybe he even makes an overtake attempt. It's going to be a hell of an interesting next few laps here. Will Lando Norris decide to go into the pits for what is essentially either the soft tire, the hard tire, or some other sort of tire to try and compete with Sainz? The undercut zone is 0.84 seconds right now, so it's really, really high threat for Sainz if he decides to pit stop, if he decides to go into the pits. So what does Norris do? What does Mercedes do? Not Mercedes do. What does Ferrari do? Russell's managed to get that gap back down to 18.4 seconds. So maybe Sainz's little maneuver did work a little bit. But, I mean, I wonder what happens here, because essentially Russell is still going to lose time. And Sainz is not going to have another opportunity to do that, because he tried to use the blue flags to try and slow down Norris when he was overtaking some of them. But those blue flags are gone now. They have got clean racing for the rest of pretty much the race. So he's not going to be able to do that again. So that gap increases. If before 60 laps that happens, you 100% would surely think Lando Norris comes into the pits and then tries to compete with Sainz before the end of the race again on much fresher tires. An interesting battle this is for third right now. As Leonardo says, we knew that post-pit stop laps were quick. We saw that from Bottas. However, Bottas, yes, he made up his time. It was to much slower drivers and near the beginning of the race. The fact that Max Verstappen has managed to make up that much time to George Russell in next to no time at all means that you could see the likes from Lando Norris do that on even soft tires. I don't know if soft tires would last 18 laps here in Monaco. It's high degradation. Well, relatively high degradation. Watching an overtake from Lance Stroll. He made an overtake right at the back there on Zhou Guanyu. Oh, he had to back off apparently out of, no, he did make it through. Yeah, so Lance Stroll does get past, Valtteri Bottas, and he now moves himself into 13th position. So he's managed to make up a position there, which is not too bad for him. Whole lot of people in the comments here. Great to see you guys all happening in the comments there. Oh, he's made another overtaker, Stroll. Oh, so he went past Sargent. That's what it was. I thought he went past Stroll. He was right at the back there. So yeah, he's now back into 14th, chasing down Valtteri Bottas, that is rather. As we're still on board with Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, getting so close to the back of each other. Lando Norris might well try to make an overtake without going to the pit stops, because he's so close to the back of him. But that gap is now starting to drop again, though, 17.3 seconds to George Russell. So I think that pit stop concept is gone. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. I do not think he's going to be able to do it. So we've got Valtteri Bottas on the back of, is it Valtteri Bottas? No, it's Zhou Guanyu, right, rather, on the back of Logan Sargent, trying to catch up to the American, who almost always finishes last in every race he starts. And yeah, I think that might happen again. Obviously, out of those who managed to get going again, Valtteri Bottas just having a little bit of a look, sneaky look up the inside of Logan Sargent's line there. Not being able to do anything, but I think Valtteri Bottas knows he can take him very soon. Sainz on the radio saying if Lando puts on a new medium, then also Charles Leclerc will be in danger. Well, again, that pit window for Lando Norris is closing sooner rather than later. So if he's going to make a decision, he's going to have to push now. And I think that's what Sainz is doing. He's just slowing down Lando Norris as much as he possibly can to try and stop this from happening. Because that gap to Russell is 17.2 seconds, which means Lando Norris will go into the pits and he'll come out fighting with George Russell still. And that's what Sainz wants. He doesn't want Lando Norris to have clean racing to catch up to him again on much fresher tires. He wants Lando Norris to get caught out by George Russell, in which case Sainz is going to try and slow down Norris rather, as much as he can. But Norris is now going to try and push to get past Sainz as well, which means Sainz is going to be so careful not to lose his position in any case, because if Lando Norris managed to make a genuine overtake on Sainz because Sainz tries to slow him down so much, then it's pointless. Sainz has already lost it. He's already lost that position. He can't make it back, because then he's going to get held up by Russell, and then Norris is going to do the same thing to Sainz on what is arguably fresher tires, because apparently, according to McLaren, they've managed to hold on to their tires better than Ferrari. So that's the sort of thing we have to look at. That's what we need to worry about. And Verstappen's gap to George Russell's 3 seconds now. He's within 3 seconds. Verstappen saying, mate, battery. Nobody is watching it again. He's worried about his battery. Nobody's telling him about his battery reserves, so you can make a use of it or not use of it. So he's within striking distance in 1 lap to George Russell. He's so close to that Mercedes already. And again, if they can somehow get that gap for George Russell to Norris to happen to a similar sort of stage, then Russell and Norris will do the same thing. But that gap is actually getting smaller. George Russell started to catch up to Norris. I wonder if that's in reaction to Verstappen to maybe try and stay ahead of him. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I think we're going to have a dramatic end to this race, quite frankly. Not as much has happened during the middle of it, but we had a really exciting start. I think we're going to have a really exciting end, because I think if Max Verstappen gets really, really close to the back of Russell, you know for a fact Max Verstappen's going to make an attempt to overtake. That might result in damage. That might result in something happening. That will trigger other events happening as a result as well. So we could have a very exciting end to this race. Lap 61 of 78. The gap now from Hamilton to Tsunoda is 58.1 seconds. Again, the lap times we were putting in 1:15, say 1:15. So we're 15 seconds away from being a whole lap from 7th to 8th position. From 7th to 8th, not from like 1st to 16th, from 7th just to 8th, 1 position. That is huge. That's a massive gap. You've got more than 1,600 of you watching now. Thank you so much for joining us on Forever Motorsports. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and like the video. All of you watching here, again, be sure to go and check out BITDEFENDER in our description as well. Comment down below where you're watching from. I do apologize. I've not been reading too many comments because I'm just trying to do the maths in my head as to what might happen here. As that gap from Norris to Russell, 16.2 seconds. Norris still trying to get as close as possible to the back of Sainz. But now all eyes on Max Verstappen, as he is within DRS range of George Russell already after pitting just about 8 laps ago, which means that we're going to see Max Verstappen try and make a genuine overtake to move himself into 5th position, which will slow Russell down as well slightly, because now he's going to have to defend. And when he's defending, he's going to lose time, which means Norris might be able to get that gap back up, even though Sainz is trying to hold off with. That's why Norris has maybe given that little buffer to Sainz. He's going to try and do it in 1 lap. 1.5 seconds from Norris to Sainz, but Norris can put the pedal to the metal and get much closer as he wants. Max Verstappen is so close to the back of George Russell right now. I wonder if he makes an attempt in the tunnel section here. George Russell trying to have to defend from Max Verstappen, and if that happens, you will, of course, see him slow down. That gap will build. 16.2 seconds from Russell to Norris. Let's see if that starts to build now as Verstappen's all over the back of George Russell. Again, the issue for George Russell here is he doesn't want to waste his tyres too much, because he can't afford to fight with Max Verstappen for too long. He's been on these tyres the whole race. And yeah, you now do start to see that gap from Russell to Norris increase dramatically, which is now 16.7 seconds. And it's going to be close to 17 seconds in just a bit. Lando Norris can make up time to Sainz very, very quickly. Again, 15 laps remaining in this race. Norris can't wait too much longer if he wants to get into the pits to try and do something. He can't wait. He needs to see this battle happen very, very quickly. He needs to see Verstappen fight with Russell for as long as possible. I wonder if something will happen, or are we just going to see these same cars to the end of the race here? Verstappen so close to the back of George Russell. Really is right on the back of him. George Russell's going to have to try and do some defensive moves here just to make sure he keeps that Red Bull behind him, not allowing Max Verstappen to have any sort of room to get past him, choosing all the lines to basically put his car directly in the middle of the track. But it does mean the gap from Russell to Norris will increase as he keeps doing this. But he needs it to increase quicker, does Norris? Because if Norris wants to get into the pits to try and challenge Sainz before the end of this race, he needs to do it now. He basically needs to do it within the next 3 laps. So he needs this gap to ASAP get larger. But it's just not. Max Verstappen, for all that he's all over the back of George Russell, George Russell's managing to hold on to the gap, 16.4 seconds. I think that's also down to Sainz playing quite a clever game in holding up Norris. So he's deliberately slowing down as well. Sainz's gap to Piastri is 4 seconds now. It used to be about 2, just under 2, even sometimes under the DRS zone. But it's now 4 seconds. He knows he's holding up Norris to hold on to the podium. The podium is more important. He knows he can't really get second. So holding on to the podium is more important. That gap will be important to him as well. So he's holding up Norris, who therefore can't get into the pits because of Russell, who's still within touch and distance of getting past him if he goes to the pits, Norris. But George Russell's fighting with Verstappen. So things happening all around the track, but I don't think any action will actually happen as a result of it. It's just very, very clever tactics from Ferrari right now. Ferrari are essentially preventing anything exciting happening because they're slowing down enough to force George Russell to stay within touch and distance of Norris, so Norris can't pit to try and do something interesting. So Ferrari essentially resulting in a lack of action, but for them, who sits in first and third, that's ideal. So the different thing that they also talk about now is Hamilton, who's just got the fastest lap in the race as well. He's got it a couple of times as well. He's just about 3 seconds behind Verstappen, which is still quite a bit of a gap to make up. But his tyres are much fresher than Verstappen's because Verstappen's now, driving in dirty air behind Russell, trying to see if he can make an overtake on him. So his tyres will be a little bit older now, and they'll start to degrade a little bit quicker. So maybe Hamilton catch up to Verstappen and also try and challenge him a little bit and cause Verstappen some problems. At the end of the day, Verstappen's tyres are so new, it's not really going to make that much of a difference, but it will hopefully help Russell if Hamilton can catch up to Verstappen a little bit quicker, because he is starting to make some inroads on Verstappen. If Hamilton get close to Verstappen, Verstappen has to start thinking about defending from George Russell, which means Russell can hold onto his tyres for a little bit longer and make sure he stays in fifth. But we're still on board again with Lando Norris, who's got really, really close to the back of Sainz again, 0.5 seconds. There's no real opportunity for him to overtake the Ferrari ahead of him. Sainz managing his tyres well enough to stay ahead of the McLaren and just keep him with that distance of Russell, who's now 16.0 seconds, under 16 seconds, in fact. So, again, realistically, you're not going to see the top 7 change, I don't think. That's my prediction right now, with just over 10 laps remaining. You're not going to see anything change in the top 7, 8. Tsunoda is now officially more than a lap behind Hamilton. More than a lap. He's in 8th position. Hamilton's in 7th. He's more than a lap behind him. On the radio, Tsunoda. Tsunoda been told, we have a margin on the strategy, so you can push more now. That's what he likes to hear. Well, quite apart from anything else, he could have pushed a little bit earlier, considering the fact he's in 8th by more than a lap to Hamilton. I think they were just seeing Alex Albon's tyres to make sure that his tyres were not going to be fresh enough to try and go after him. Apparently not, so basically he's been told, you can push a little bit more. So Charles Leclerc, in his home race, the Monegasque, is still in first position. He's never made the podium in Monaco, but he has the chance to do so now. He is still in first. Piastri's in second, still doing very well there. Sainz in third, managing his race very well and protecting Charles Leclerc from any sort of thing from Lando Norris, slowing Norris down enough. George Russell's gap now is 14.8 seconds. That possible pit stop is gone. It realistically is gone, unless something completely different happens the next 5 laps. I don't think you're going to see any sort of changes. And Verstappen could maybe try and get past Russell as Russell's tyres get even older on these mediums. But realistically, again, not going to happen. So what you're more or less watching right now is just cars going around in the positions they'll finish in, unless something dramatic happens. Verstappen's going to try and push as much as he can to get close to George Russell. The only way I see something happen is if Max Verstappen and George Russell's little battle results in a crash. If that sort of thing happens, then you'll see some movement up the top in terms of who's going to come to the pits when and how they come to the pits, what tyres they get onto, how they want to fare for the rest of the race. That'll be the interesting one. Lap 67 of 78. Just about 10 laps remaining. Charles Leclerc's last 5 races in Monaco did not finish. 2018, 2019 did not finish. 2021 did not finish. 2022 4th. 2023 6th. He's never made the podium in his home race. He is currently leading the race with just under 10 laps remaining. Can he go on to finally win his home race, which will break his, it'll burst tears in all camps across the world for him. And that's always been his dream since he was a young racer, to win his home Grand Prix. He's on his way to do so. Can he hold on to it? Will something dramatic happen right before the end of this race to prevent him from doing so? He's hoping not. The rest of us might be hoping something else happens, which not necessarily results in him losing it, but certainly results in something interesting happening at the top there. But right now, he's certainly doing a great job at holding on to first, not coming under any pressure. Norris and Sainz still trying to have it out of each other, not really doing too much. Same as Verstappen and Russell. Still sort of going after each other, but not really. Hamilton, though, closer to Verstappen. It's not under 2 seconds to him. So he could try and prove a problem in the next few laps. But again, it's so difficult to overtake, as we've seen. Piastri was so close to Leclerc for the good 25, 30 laps in the beginning. And Sainz to Norris, same. So, oh well. We'll see what happens. Watching Logan Sargent, he said in the radios he thinks he hit the wall. Did he hit the wall? Oh, he did too. He just scraped the wall a bit with his tires. They're trying to catch up to Joe Granu ahead of him. So Sargent did scrape the wall a little bit. So that could have been interesting. And of all the drivers, of course, Logan Sargent smashing his way out of this race would not be far away from the realms of possibility at all. And Logan Sargent is trying to fight his way into a 15th place finish, which is much higher than he usually does. So maybe he'll really push Joe Granu, and maybe he does go into the wall in the last 10 laps here, which would result in serious changes across the grid and some serious strategy decisions. With maybe a potential pit stop for Lando Norris. I don't know if he would go into the pits. I don't know if you would see people go into the pits right at the end of this race, given the fact that you would possibly lose positions as a result of the safety car. I'm not sure you would see people into the pits all that much. So again, I don't see much happening right now in this last 8 laps. Going to the comments here, just seeing people's opinions about the race, and says, yeah, Monaco qualifying equals the race. Welcome to Monaco, because Max wasn't made for the type of races. These are tiny. Yes, a goofy race indeed. Leclerc is doing well. Leclerc is doing well. Somebody else says again, Monaco sucks. No pit stop amount required. There's no minimum number of pit stops. There's the minimum number of tire compounds, because we had a red flag in the first lap. People changed their tires, most of them across the grid, changed their tires then, which means that they can go on to the rest of the race on the same tire, which is what the top 5 have all done. Stayed on the same tire since lap 1. I hate Monaco, says Teresa. Dutch saying, but the last few races, McLaren is giving a hard battle to the Red Bulls. I do think McLaren are arguably as quick, if not quicker, than the Red Bulls at the moment, which is really, really good to see for the rest of the Grand Prix season. The Ferrari is also doing really, really well today, which is great to see, which means that hopefully we've got, going forward, at least from this race, which might not have been the most entertaining, going forward, we've got an indication that the Ferraris, the Red Bulls, and the McLarens are all more or less equal for pace, which means that we've got some seriously cool racing ahead of us coming up for us for the rest of the season, and lots of very cool races still to come. We've got the Spanish Grand Prix, we've got the Belgium Grand Prix, the Silverstone Grand Prix, all these really, really famous tracks, Spa, obviously. So we've got some awesome races ahead of us with potentially 3 really competitive teams at the top. So it's all to watch for the rest of the season. Right now, though, of course, we're still on board with Norris and Sainz, who are getting so close to each other. Sainz is now actually on the back of Piastri. It's an interesting one to see. Sainz is really close to the back of Piastri, maybe trying to see if he can force Piastri into a mistake. So, yeah, Sainz now, even though he was, trying to fend away from Norris previously, is now trying to fight a little bit with Piastri at the top there. Lap 71 of 78. Verstappen also within DRS of George Russell, not really going to be able to make a challenge too much yet. Logan Sargent has managed to, in the meantime, get past Joe Granu. I'm sure we'll see a replay of it, but he has got past Joe Granu. He's now into 15th position, chasing down Stroll, who's 18 seconds ahead of him. So pretty much Logan Sargent's race is done, unless he decides to crash. Remember to like the stream, says Fluffy Owl. Indeed, do be sure to like the stream. I really do appreciate that comment as well. Rutuja saying, do you think Ricciardo can overtake Alonso? No. He's been there and thereabouts the entire race. I don't think it's going to happen. Pretty much across the whole grid, it's the same thing. So close to the back of him, but it's just so difficult to overtake in Monaco. Bob saying, I really hope for a top 5, get a puncture, and Max makes his way up to first. I doubt very much that sort of thing will happen. Piastri's gap to Leclerc in the meantime has dropped significantly down to 8 seconds. 8 seconds is that gap from Piastri to Leclerc. Really, really big gap. Russell's gap to Norris is 11.1 seconds, so absolutely no ways to even think about a sort of pit stop right now. And anyway, there's not enough time to make up in just about 6 laps. So, as I say, what you're seeing right now on your grid is more or less what you're going to get at the end of it, unless something dramatic happens, which I do not see as a possibility. So pretty much we'll continue on as we are and see if Leclerc will be able to take his car home for his first ever win at home in Monaco, which will really be well received by the home crowd and all the Billionaires Club as he races around. We're on board with him, watching him go around the very, very famous Monaco circuit here in Monte Carlo. And yeah. Andreas saying, oh, maybe we can see a final attack on Leclerc from Piastri. Again, Piastri's gap is 8.4 seconds right now, so I very much doubt it. Sainz is actually trying to catch up to Piastri. They're all watching very, very intently in the Ferrari garage. Maybe they think Sainz can have some sort of a say with Piastri, and maybe they reckon he'll make a lunge. Could be interesting. I don't think he will, though. Jason De La Rosa says, I have to agree with everyone. Monaco is one of the most boring races. There's nothing magical about the space anymore. Makes the track wider so the race improves for overtaking and change the tire. Well, unfortunately, it's a bit difficult to make a street circuit wider, considering the fact that it's been built for many, many, many years. It's as wide as it more or less can be. It's not really possible to make the track wider. What I maintain they should do is somehow find a way to make a DRS zone out of the tunnel. Because that immediate chicane to the left and then back to the right, if you removed that and you made that a straight, you can make that a DRS zone, and that was a DRS zone. I know it's dangerous at the end of it, find a way to make it safe. If that was a DRS zone, this race would be completely different and would open up a completely different dynamic as well. So that's my suggestion for what they could do to make this race that much better. But again, 2026, the cars will be smaller again, which means overtaking might become a possibility. We used to see so many overtakes coming straight out of the tunnel before that chicane. Unfortunately, we don't see that anymore because the cars are just too big, too difficult to follow. Leclerc on the radio, saying, I'll just bring it home, being told also, thank you. So a little bit of arrogance coming from Leclerc in these last 5 laps. A bit of a weird thing to do, considering he's never done well here and has always had, as people are pointing out in the comments, curses, with regards to this place here. Yeah, I mean, personally, I would just race to the end, and then once he has brought it home, saying, I brought it home. So weird one from Charles Leclerc, but we are so close to the end of this race. Lap 74 of 78, no movement across the grid. Piastri's gap to Leclerc is huge. Sainz close to Piastri, Norris close to Sainz. Russell 8.6 seconds away from Norris now. So he's actually been catching him slowly but surely. But there's no ways he's going to make any sort of an overtake opportunity. Verstappen's also close to the back of Russell. Hamilton also close to the back of Verstappen. But then there's a gap of a whole lap from Hamilton to Tsunoda. Tsunoda in 8th position in the V-Carb car. Albon is 4 seconds behind Tsunoda. Gasly is 8 seconds behind Albon. Alonso 12 seconds behind Gasly. That would be for that last place points position, that being Gasly in 10th. So we're not going to see any points from Aston Martin today. 11th and 14th, respectively, the two of them. Stroll had puncture, which resulted in him losing a lot of the ground there. They might have been able to make up to get into the points. Bottas and Zhou in 13th and 16th, also not getting the points. Sargent in 15th, not getting points either. Ricciardo in 12th, same. The 4 cars that we lost, obviously, near the beginning of the race, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Perez, and Magnussen, who will be receiving no points and have been watching from arguably what is the best viewing points in Formula One history, that of Monaco, wherever you are. in a hotel or on a yacht or whatever. I'm sure they're enjoying their time outside the car right now, even though I'm sure they would have preferred to be in the car. Nonetheless, unfortunately for them, they were unable to continue. Lap 75 of 78, and we've got more than 1,800 of you watching. Thank you so much for joining us here on Forever Motorsports. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Smooth operator says Dutch, in regards to Carlos Sainz. Exoteric says hot take, billionaires can afford to travel for a race, scrap Monaco, and open up a new country. As we do see, Kylian Mbappe is going to be waving the flag here in Monaco. He used to play for the Monaco football team. So probably a nice touch that, actually, to be fair. One of the most famous footballers in the world, Kylian Mbappe. Used to play for Monaco before moving to PSG, which is where he currently plays this football. He'll be waving the flag here in the city he used to live in for the local Monegasque driver, Leclerc, in just 2 laps' time. And there's quite a lot of Charles Leclerc's partners in the pits there, quite nervous, just twiddling her bracelet there. I think she's a little bit nervous about the fact that Charles Leclerc is finally going to win at home, so she's very chuffed for him. He hasn't won a race as well, just by the way, on a side note for Charles Leclerc, since 2021. It's been a long time coming for Charles Leclerc, 3 years since he's last won a race, and we're now following here as he's bringing it home really nicely. 8.5 seconds is that gap from him to Piastri, so he's got no real danger at all. He can afford to really coast for these last 3 laps and get to the end of this race without any damage to win the Monaco Grand Prix as we enter lap 77, last 2 laps of this race. People saying bring back Malaysia. I'm saying bring back Kyle Lamy, frankly. That's a hell of a Grand Prix that we should have back. And I miss Kyle Lamy for obvious reasons. I'm South African. And the other reason, of course, we don't have a single race in Africa. Let's get a race back to Africa. And Kyalami is such an awesome circuit. Really great to have them all racing here in Kyalami, which is literally just down the road for me. I would love to be seeing Formula 1 cars racing there again. Sainz is really close to the back of Piastri. Again, I don't think he's going to be able to make any sort of overtake attempt, but he is really close to the back of him. So we are almost into the final lap here in Monaco. Charles Leclerc will be leading this Grand Prix to Piastri, who's in second, and Sainz, who's in third, Norris in fourth. If there's any sort of attempt to make an overtake from the top, from the fourth, third, and second, as they're all within DRS range of each other, they have to make the effort now. It is the final lap here in Monte Carlo. Leclerc going around in the hard tyre, which he's been on since lap 1, obviously, as a result of that red flag when he started on the medium tyre. Sainz with DRS trying to get as close as possible to Oscar Piastri. Norris, same thing, to Sainz ahead of him. Verstappen also trying to catch Russell. Will he be able to make a move in this final lap? It's so difficult to make any overtakes in this track. I doubt very much we'll see any sort of overtakes, but maybe somebody pulls one out of the bag. But right now, we're still on board with Charles Leclerc as he goes around the famous hairpin here and gets followed later on by the eventual arrival of Oscar Piastri, who's 8.3 seconds behind him. 5 career race wins only for Charles Leclerc. He will get his 6th and first ever in Monaco, his home Grand Prix. And it's so well deserved for Charles Leclerc, who's finally going to be able to do it. And what a moment it will be for him, his family, and for the entire of Monaco as he comes around the final couple of corners here in Monaco, the final stretch. And he gets a huge cheer from the local crowd as he comes around. The yachts all also clapping for their local boy. Sainz not making any inroads on Piastri, so it's not going to happen for him. He comes around the last 3 corners here for Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque, the one who's been born here, one of the very few drivers who can say they properly are from Monaco, as he weaves around the final start-finish straight, and he comes across the finish line, start-finish line. Monaco has their first ever home Grand Prix winner in Charles Leclerc, and they are so chuffed in the Ferrari garage. Oscar Piastri eventually comes across the line in second, Carlos Sainz in third, a great day for Ferrari, Norris in 4th position. Russell manages his tyres relatively well to 5th position. Verstappen in 6th. Hamilton in 7th. We're going to have to wait a fair while for Yuki Tsunoda, who's going to have to come across the line in just a little bit. But that is your final race results. Charles Leclerc wins at his home Grand Prix for the first time in his career and his 7th race win. He hasn't won a race since 2021. He finally has broken that record. Ferrari getting a lot of points today. And yeah, certainly heating up the Constructors' Championship right on the top there between Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari. Sergio Perez not getting any points today. Again, increases that possibility of a real 3-way fight between McLaren, Ferrari, and Red Bull. which means the rest of the season is starting to look a lot more exciting. Yes, this race wasn't as exciting as we'd hoped it to be. Look, we've got a different race winner to Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen is finished quite far down, but we certainly have a likelihood of a lot of interesting races ahead of us, because it's getting so close at the top of this Constructors' Championship between Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull. Certainly makes the rest of the season a very tasty feature, which you can catch here, of course, on Forever Motorsports with myself, Mark, and with Reese, and with Stephen, who does also do some of the sessions with us. So do not go anywhere. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications icon, join the membership club. Of course, we'll see you in the next race as well. And what a moment for Charles Leclerc, his first home race victory. He's so chuffed about it, as are the home crowd, who are all bursting open champagne bottles and giving a big wave to all the drivers that go around this very famous track. And of course, we go to Canada next, a very interesting race that is as well, Lance Stroll's home race. And I don't think he's going to be able to do anything there really, but it certainly will be an interesting race because it's quite a fast circuit, which suits all those top three I just talked about. And I think it's going to be a hell of a good race to watch. So don't miss it. Be sure to turn on that bell icon for Forever Motorsports. I have been Mark. You've been watching the Monaco Grand Prix in 2024. For now, goodbye.